Everybody, welcome into the Mike Missanelli Show. But no Mike Missanelli today. He's got the day off, but you got Bill Colarulo. You got the one and only Ray Dunn moving from behind the glass to sit next to me in studio. What's going on, Raymond?
This is wonderful. This is a nice seat right here. This is a fun seat. I'm excited for today.
Yeah, so Ray's got the nice, comfortable number 2 chair in here, and behind the glass we got Sean Rodman. But there's a ton to talk about today. It's interesting. Even though it's a Friday in February and the NFL season's over, there's not a lack of topics when it comes to sports because the Eagles' offseason already in full swing. We know that franchise tags can be applied. There's a lot of rumors already circulating about free agents, both inside the Novacara complex and out. A big name potential stud coming to Philadelphia. We'll get into all of that. Seemed like a pipe dream before, but now when you got NFL insiders on a national level talking about the possibility, give a little hint, his name's Myles Garrett.
What?
The possibility, but we'll talk about that. We got the Philadelphia Phillies starting spring training. They're in action this weekend. We got something to talk about with regard to a contract extension there. The Sixers season may be finally over. We got to get into that as well. And then how about it? We're going to start the show a little hockey talk, Ray? A little hockey talk? We had the Four Nations face-off come to conclusion last night. What a tournament. What a game. Of course, it goes into overtime last night. Unfortunately, Connor McDavid, an absolute stud, wins it for Canada, but a great, great couple of weeks for hockey as a whole. And PK Subban, if you don't know him, used to play in the NHL, does a great job as an analyst. He had some interesting things to say about the difference between the NHL and the NBA. So we're going to get into all of that today, Ray, because there is a lot on the table. But I do want to start off with the Philadelphia Eagles because we now know who the offensive coordinator is going to be, Kevin Patullo. We had A.J. Brown say some interesting things. We'll get into that later on in the show. But more importantly, I want to do a little Fantasy Friday today. Because you know, if I wasn't doing this, my second dream job would be general manager of an NFL football team. So everybody today is going to be able to play general manager. Everybody today on this Fantasy Friday is going to be able to put their Howie Roseman cap on. I bleed for this city, Howie Roseman, and make decisions about what they would do this offseason when it comes to free agency, potential trades, draft picks, all of it, because there's a lot on the table, Ray, and we are in full swing already. There's no offseason anymore with the NFL. It's all year round.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Eagles. That feels like something we would do.
Yes.
Feels like something we would do all year long.
But you know what we're not going to talk about today? At least I don't think so over the next 4. Nick Sirianni.
I'm the smartest coach in the world.
Because we don't really need to talk about him anymore. I don't have to defend Nick Sirianni anymore. He has proven to be an excellent coach. He's a Super Bowl winning coach. And I think the conversation and arguments are over. So now we get to just talk about the personnel going forward.
3 minutes into a show yesterday, which I was promised we were not going to talk about Sirianni. Here you are praising Sirianni.
Here I am praising Sirianni.
This is going to be an interesting 4 hours.
No, we're not going to do anything about Sirianni. But our man Mike Missanelli, he's probably not tuned in today. I already have people asking me, are we going to do the Field of 64 about the most annoying things about Mike Missanelli? No, we're not going to do that today. Doesn't seem right to do it behind his back. I think we should do it on the day he's here.
So Monday morning. Sounds good.
When he comes back Monday morning, we'll do the Field of 64. But all right, let's talk about the Eagles to start because I teased it a little bit just now. But as soon as Myles Garrett, the week of the Super Bowl, declared that he wanted to be traded from the Cleveland Browns, like we do as a city and a fan base all the time, we start saying, oh, the Eagles should get him. The Eagles should get him. My knee-jerk reaction was, as much as I would love Myles Garrett on the Philadelphia Eagles, there's no chance. Like, it's an absolute pipe dream. They're not going to be able to get him. Every time we hear a big name, we can't just assume that the Eagles are going to get him. But now there's starting to be some rumblings, right? Is this a possibility?
Why do you do that? Why do you try and shut that down? Why can't I dream? Why can't I think everyone's going to be here? It's Howie season. Anyone could be here. I have deemed in my head that some way, somehow, that man can make it happen. I see Myles Garrett in the open market. Immediately, I've already got him photoshopped in a Birds uniform in my head. Now, I can't actually do it. I'm not that good with Photoshop, but I could see it in my head. I see the vision. Yeah, I think this is a real possibility. And the way people are talking right now, seems like there's an actual chance this one could happen. I don't know why anyone would be against it. I don't know why people want me to think logically about it. I'm going to think irrationally about this, man. He's going to be a Philadelphia Eagle.
Thinking rationally about it. Dude, honestly, though, let's pipe dream for a second, and we'll talk about how the Eagles can maybe get him and some of the things that the national media are saying about the Eagles getting him. But I want you to picture this defense with Myles Garrett along that defense.
I've been doing it for weeks.
It really would be unbelievable. And it's going to cost a lot to get him. But you think about it, this would be a typical Howie Roseman move. You just go to the Super Bowl. You win the Super Bowl. You have the number one defense in the NFL. And then what do you do in the offseason? You go out and you get arguably the best defensive player we've seen in a decade in the National Football League.
The man's so good leading up to the 5th Super Bowl in this franchise's existence. People were thirsting over him instead of talking about the Super Bowl. That's how good this guy is.
He is that good. And for people who maybe don't follow the Cleveland Browns that much, I mean, the good thing about the NFL, unlike other sports where there's stars on other teams and maybe you don't see them that much, like in the NBA and Major League Baseball, when you're talking about a guy that plays on a team that's not a popular team, you don't know who they are sometimes. NFL, everyone knows who Myles Garrett is, right? Even though he plays for the lowly Browns.
Yeah, let's be honest, though. There's not a lot of you that have watched more than the highlights of Myles Garrett. We're not getting a lot of Browns games.
National. Yeah, unless they've played the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
Right.
You saw Myles Garrett once this season for a full game. Other than that, you might have seen a quarter or two, but you did not stick through 4 quarters, and I don't blame you. That's not a shot at you. I'm not better than you. I'm the same way because I'm not sticking through a Cleveland Browns game.
Well, there's a reason why he wants out of Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And it's not financially motivated. Myles Garrett doesn't want to leave because he doesn't think he's going to get paid. He's gotten paid. He would get another contract. The guy would get paid a ton. He wants to win, and he wants to play for a competitor that has a real shot to win a Super Bowl. And the Eagles check off all those boxes, man. They check off all of those boxes. And again, I know some people out there may be saying, what are we doing here? Like every time there's a big name free agent or player on another team that says he wants to be traded, we immediately think, oh, the Eagles should go get him. But there are real possibilities that the Philadelphia Eagles could get him. In fact, national media guys, so you're talking Dan Graziano from ESPN, who's really connected with the NFL. He was on, I believe, Get Up yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And this is what Dan Graziano had to say about the Eagles and Myles Garrett. Listen to this. What, you got it, Sean?
I need a moment to get it.
Oh, okay. Sean's going to pull it up. So Sean's going to pull up Dan Graziano on Get Up. Because this isn't like us saying it, Ray. This isn't local media saying it. This isn't even local beat reporters saying it. This is a national guy that covers the league, covers all 32 NFL teams, who's indicating that this is a real possibility. And it wasn't only Dan Graziano. In fact, there's another insider. Everybody knows Bill Barnwell. We cite to Bill Barnwell a lot.
The last 2 seasons, he's had the Eagles regressing both years.
So he's not always right. He's not always right, Ray.
1 for 2, by the way.
But Bill Barnwell said his bold prediction, Myles Garrett to the Philadelphia Eagles. So, he actually says extra bold, Myles Garrett to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Why extra? Why do you got to throw that likelihood lower than it has to be? Why do you have to throw that in there? I feel pretty good about the likelihood of that one.
And then he also says, the rich get richer.
As they should.
But like, when you hear it coming from a guy like that, right? When you hear it coming from a guy like Barnwell, and Sean's working on the audio of Dan Graziano, but that makes you feel a little bit good. Like, this is not just local people. This is a reality that nationally they're saying it's a possibility.
Yeah, Graziano's saying it's a possibility. Bill Barnwell's run the numbers on it. Bill Barnwell's not just throwing things out there to throw things out there. If there's one thing that man does is run numbers. I swear, I think his like home office is just like 35 computers that run numbers all day long, just giving him calculating odds, calculating salary cap. That man has more numbers in his one office room than some companies have in their entire database. That is like his role there for ESPN. If he's saying that it's a possibility, it's something that can work out numerically for the Philadelphia Eagles. So for everyone that's like, oh, would it cost too much with the salary cap? No. How we would figure that out, 1. And 2, I think there is a realistic fit that you look at what the Eagles are going to need this offseason. You look at where they're at in their contention window and what Myles Garrett wants. It all should be a perfect marriage. Pay the price. Go get the man. Make him a Philadelphia Eagle.
Yeah, so we're going to definitely continue to talk about the Myles Garrett thing. We want to hear from you. I mean, obviously, I know you would want Myles Garrett, but do you think this is a real possibility? Because when we get back, I'm going to play that clip of Dan Graziano. Sean's pulling it. But I'm also going to play a clip of A.J. Brown, because A.J. Brown went on a podcast yesterday, and he was asked, what would be your dream acquisition for the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason? Spoiler alert, it's going to make you happy when he says what his dream acquisition would be. So we're going to play both of those clips for you. We'll continue the Eagles offseason topic. You have the right today. It's Fantasy Friday. So you can put on the Howie Roseman cap. What would you do this offseason? Not only about Myles Garrett, but we're going to get into what the free agents look like on both sides of the football. Who would you sign? Who would you let walk? Who would you cut to free up some cap space? Because there are some players on this Eagles team where if the Eagles moved on from them, could free up cap space to maybe go out big game hunting for a guy like Myles Garrett. So we have all that coming up. We'll dive into a little Phillies, a little bit of Sixers Celtics, which was just ugly.
What happened?
What's that?
There was a game?
Oh, yeah, there was a game.
Oh.
And then the Four Nations. Because I do want to hear from people, too, on the Four Nations. Like, did this change your opinion of hockey? Are you now a hockey fan? But you can get in. 610-632-0975. A lot on the table today. We'll be right back.
Tyrone Johnson, Ricky.
Welcome back into the Mike Missanelli Show. You got Bill Colarulo, Ray Dunn today. We're trying to stay calm and level-headed. But Myles Garrett's coming to the Philadelphia Eagles, Ray.
If he is not a Philadelphia Eagle by July.
Trying to stay calm and level-headed. No, but really, when the first news got reported that Myles Garrett tweeted out he was seeking a trade, I didn't think there was a chance of it. I really did not think there would be a chance of it, and I didn't even want to go down the road, and we haven't talked about it much on this station. But now when you have A.J. Brown, a player on the Philadelphia Eagles, going on a podcast yesterday, and he was asked what his dream acquisition would be. Of course, fans would want Myles Garrett, but even A.J. Brown wants him. Listen to A.J. Brown from last night.
You never answer me, though. Any free agents you want. You feel me? Money don't matter. You could bring anybody on.
An unlimited salary cap is off.
Honestly, that's what it be feeling like over here. I'll say Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett.
Oh, my God.
Adding him with Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith.
Could you imagine? Myles Garrett with Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, even throw Jalix Hunt in the mix, Jordan Davis. We'll talk about Milton Williams in a second because I do want to talk about the Eagles' own pending free agents later on. But, Ray, could you imagine?
Shiver down my spine.
I'm getting too excited for February 21st, but it would just be – you talk about making a splash. When we say we want the Eagles to go back and repeat and have that mentality to stay hungry, you bring in a guy like Myles Garrett, oh, my God.
Just imagine the link. Thursday Night Football to open up the season. And Myles Garrett gets announced with the defensive starters. Just imagine that atmosphere and tell me you want to be realistic about what they could do this offseason. Oh, I'm afraid of the numbers. I'm afraid of giving up draft picks. Live a little. Dream a little, people.
Yeah, we're getting so – I love that we're getting everybody excited on a Friday in February. But I just hearing these clips, and then Sean was able to pull the Graziano one. So Dan Graziano from ESPN, who's tied in to the NFL, he's insider. He's a reporter. He has his finger on the pulse of what's going on. He was on Get Up yesterday on ESPN, and this is what he had to say about the likelihood of Myles Garrett to the Eagles. Listen to Dan Graziano.
I think this would fit really well with what the Eagles do and how Howie Roseman operates, right? Paying a premium price for a premium player, right? As opposed to sort of overpaying, your own free agent, like pay more than you think the market is worth for Josh Sweat just to keep him, right? You overpay to get a guy that can make a difference. That's what they did with Saquon Barkley, and they've done it with others.
All right, so that was Graziano, and he says that you overpay, right? Now, this is a little bit different than what they did with Saquon because Saquon Barkley was a free agent, so they overpaid him with a contract. You can get a guy. If he's a free agent, you just offer him a contract, you get him. Myles Garrett's under contract, so this would have to be a trade with the Cleveland Browns. And a lot of people are asking, I see him in the YouTube chat, what would it cost? Well, apparently in January, there are reports that the Cleveland Browns turned down 2 first-round draft picks. That came from Cleveland.com's Mary Kay Gabbett, who I think we may have had on the show before, or at least on the pregame show. Does a good job covering the Browns. Said that he would turn down any offer. Now, I don't know if the offer was actually made, but when she spoke to Andrew Berry, who's the general manager of the Browns, they would turn down 2 first-rounders.
Okay.
So, but let's assume it would cost more than 2 first-rounders. So let's look at the Eagles' draft picks for the next 2 seasons. This coming draft, they have their own first-round pick, which is number 32. They have a second, a third, a fourth, and 3 fifth-rounders. In 2026, it's all standard right now. They have a 1, 2, 2 threes, 4, 5, 6, and 7. But they're going to get some compensatory picks this year because we're going to talk about the free agents coming up. Any of those free agents go out and sign elsewhere, you may get a third or fourth-round draft pick depending on how big the contract is. It's a complicated formula. So I ask you, Ray, assuming that the Eagles would have to give up more than 2 first-round draft picks for Myles Garrett, let's say it's 2 firsts, a third, and maybe some other draft capital, what are you doing?
Assuming that another general manager gets the upper hand on Howie Roseman in a trade deal. If we make that assumption, which I think is totally outlandish, and I think is absolutely wrong. You want to posture in January about wanting 2 first-round picks? Good for you. Keep that posturing. By the way, they still got to pay the guy's salary. You're not getting 2 first-round picks, but you could posture that way. Go ahead, Andrew Berry. When you can't make a trade, talk all tough about the trade that you'll make. I don't buy for a second that they would turn down 2 first-round picks. But if they had to do it, if you are saying, Ray, stop with your thought process of the offseason. You have to answer this question specifically. I'll answer it for you. Just for you, Bill. Just today. I'm getting along with you today. All right? This is going to be good for the dynamic of the next 4 hours.
Maybe we'll put to bed the idea that you don't like me.
Relax. Let's not get crazy. If that's the case, I got to give up more than that? Sign me up. Welcome to the contention window. How does my defensive line get rebuilt in a way that can attack the quarterback? I don't know. Bring in one of the best edge rushers in the league? Yeah, sign me up for that price tag. I want to win now. Do I want to win long? Guess what? Howie Roseman put himself in this position because he figured out how to draft defensive players. Now that he figured that out, you can throw some of those draft picks down the line out because you've already got the young defense in front of you. It's here right now. Contend with this defense right now. Go get me Myles Garrett.
Yeah, and you look at if you did have to give up 2 first-rounders. We know this year's it's the 32nd pick because you won the Super Bowl. You would hope that next year's first-round pick, if you threw that in, is also going to be at the bottom of the NFL draft because you're hoping to make another run to at least NFC Championship or Super Bowl. So even though you'd be giving up 2 first-rounders, they're not high draft picks. And let me just read people some stats because Ray said earlier that not a lot of people have probably watched Myles Garrett every single game because he plays in Cleveland.
It's hard to.
Ray, listen to these stats.
Cleveland plays offense too.
And this is on a Cleveland Browns team. Last year, 14 sacks. The year before, 14. The year before, 16. The year before that, 16. The year before that, 12. The year before that, 10 in 10 games. Then 13 and a half, and as a rookie, 7. And you're telling me you could put this guy on a line that has Jalen Carter occupying all that attention? I mean, either what it's going to do is you're going to have to give all your attention to Myles Garrett or all your attention to Jalen Carter. But just like we talk about with the Eagles offense, where pick your poison if you try to stop Saquon because there's all those other weapons, pick your poison. Who are you going to try to stop? Who are you going to double team on that defensive line? This defense would be unbelievable if they make this move. That's why I'm giving up whatever you have to. 2 first rounds. I'll throw in a 3rd-round draft pick. Hell, I'll even drive down to Cleveland myself. I'll pick up Myles Garrett, and I'll drive him to the NovaCare complex.
You could trade me to Cleveland for him. I don't want to go.
Let's not get carried away, Ray.
But I would go for him, for all of you. I do that for all the people out there.
Let's not get carried away. Sean, we're going to trade him. He didn't have the clip ready. We're going to trade Sean. I'm only kidding, Sean. You do a good job back there, man. So I do want to hear from everybody else, though. You can text us 610-632-0975. What would you give up for Myles Garrett? If it costs more than 2 first-round draft picks, would you do it? You can get in 610-632-0975. Now, in addition to the draft capital, you may have to clear up some salary cap space. So I do want to talk about the salary cap coming up because we know the cap increased. We know the Eagles have some cap room. But there's a couple of players that if they moved on from, it would clear up cap space, but now it could potentially open up a hole on that defense. So I want to talk about that coming up. But keep it here. We got a great show, a lot to talk about on this fun Fantasy Friday. You're Howie Roseman today. What are you doing? We'll be right back.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Well, besides Bill trying to trade me for Myles Garrett, Cam Jerkins has back surgery. I'm Sean Rodman, and this is your Fanatic Sports Update. Jerkins fought through a back injury in the NFC Championship game, and Super Bowl reportedly underwent surgery Tuesday to alleviate a nerve pain. Jerkins is expected to make a full recovery by July in time for training camp. A.J. Brown did some media rounds yesterday, and he highlighted his love for Kevin Patullo, his promotion as the new Eagles offensive coordinator.
I truly feel like it's a great hire. He already has been involved in almost everything. Him, Kellen, and Nick basically called the plays already. So it's a great hire.
The Sixers lose by 20 to the Celtics last night with the Sixers' big 3 all playing. Paul George confirmed post-game that he has received treatment on his finger. It was reported last week that he was receiving injections in the finger in order to play. This update is sponsored by Bradford White. When you need a water heater, choose one that is built to be the best. Choose Bradford White. And this update is also sponsored by Wendy's. Freshen up your morning with Wendy's breakfast. Like a breakfast Baconator, ready for a fresh wake-up call. Gotta be Wendy's. Available at participating U.S. Wendy's. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the 76ers and Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
On this Fantasy Friday, where we're pipe dreaming a little bit, pretending to be Howie Roseman, and figuring out what we would do this offseason. Not only when it comes to our own free agents, because there's a lot of them on that Philadelphia Eagles defense, and a couple important ones on offense as well that we'll talk about. But we're also looking at the possibility, which I think now is a real possibility, of the Philadelphia Eagles bringing in the defensive player of the year, maybe the best defensive player in the entire National Football League over the last 5 to 6 seasons. And that's Myles Garrett, because we heard A.J. Brown say on a podcast yesterday that would be his dream. We heard some NFL insiders, Dan Graziano, Bill Barnwell from ESPN, say that's their bold prediction, Garrett to the Philadelphia Eagles. And we were looking at what it would cost based off of some of the things coming out of Cleveland to pry him away. Now, Cleveland's taken the stance, we're not trading him. And they said they would turn down 2 first-round draft picks.
Oh, yeah.
But if Garrett wants out, if Garrett wants out, he's going to get out. And if it does take more than 2 first-round draft picks, we're asking, well, what would you be willing to give up? I'd give up 2 first-rounders. I'd throw in probably a 3rd-rounder. If you can get him to take maybe a Bryce Huff off your hands, which I doubt, why not? Maybe throw Kenny Pickett in the mix. Who knows? Whatever they need, I'm doing.
Oh, that poor guy with the quarterback's jersey out there, if you have to throw Pickett on the back of that Cleveland Browns long list of names.
Oh, yeah, another starting quarterback for them. So we want to hear from you. What would you be willing to give up for Myles Garrett? 610-632-0975. I know we've gotten some texts on this, Sean. What are people saying?
Yes, we do. And one person is actually wanting to send a quarterback out to Cleveland as well. This Mike from Turnersville says, definitely think Eagles should make a move on him, a potential offer, 2025 first-rounder, Tanner McKee, and a 26th third-rounder. Cleveland needs a cheap young QB, and they are going to trade out of the 2nd spot because Shedeur Sanders won't play in Cleveland.
It's interesting. Yeah, has Sanders come out and actually said that yet, or we're just making that assumption?
I mean, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I have done nothing with regards to quarterbacks in this draft. I've seen them all talking smack. You know, Cam Ward saying, you're going to regret passing on me. Sanders, I've been following, basically the entire Sanders saga through college, which has been so much fun for me to watch. But I have done nothing in terms of preparing for a quarterback because that is a luxury I have in my life. I don't have to worry about college quarterbacks. It's a beautiful thing. I'm not going to do that when I don't have to.
Yeah, we are lucky, aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, we are lucky that we have really, obviously, Jalen Hurts. And we've debated this. We've ranked him. You and I both believe he's an elite quarterback. He's up there as maybe number 2 in the NFL.
But would you take Baker over him for the next 5 years?
Oh, stop, Pete
6-1-0.
Stop, Pete Prisco. But what's nice is the Eagles have 2 reliable backups, in my opinion. And I'm not overly in love with Tanner McKee. Mike and I battle about this. McKee would be a reliable backup. Kenny Pickett, in my opinion, a reliable backup. The point of a backup quarterback, they could come in and they could win you a game or 2 when your starter gets hurt, and that's exactly what Pickett and McKee did this year, because Pickett came in and they won, and then he gets hurt, and then McKee comes in and they win the game, and he had a great game. I think it was against the Giants, wasn't it? McKee's game?
McKee's, no, it was the Cowboys.
Cowboys, that's right. I knew it was.
He threw first 2 of his first 3 passes were touchdowns. He had the greatest touchdown rate in all of NFL history.
Yes, I knew it was an NFC East opponent. So in addition to the draft capital, though, and I want to hear from you, like I said, you can send us a text, 610-632-0975, what you would be willing to give up for Myles Garrett. Although Ray Dunn's off the table, even though he said he would go to Cleveland.
I did appreciate our YouTube chat saying, no, you can't send Ray. That's too much.
No, we're not sending you. But in addition to the draft capital, you're going to have to figure out how to fit him under the salary cap with your other free agents, which we'll talk about coming up later on in the show. But right now, the NFL, which is just an absolute monster, I'm sure a lot of people heard the news, NFL informed teams that the salary cap will be going up again, at least by $22 million, maybe even more. It's going to land somewhere between $277.5 million and $281.5 million. That would mean that in the last 2 years, the NFL salary cap has jumped by over $53 million. This is why Howie Roseman's so smart, Ray. Because when they do some of these backloaded contracts, they're anticipating that the cap is going to continue to increase. Because how many times do we hear every single year, oh, those big dead cap numbers are going to come back to haunt the Philadelphia Eagles? And they never do. I don't worry about money at all. So if there's a way to get Myles Garrett in terms of draft capital, Roseman will figure out the financials.
You know how you talk about life scenarios and people throw out, well, if money was no object, That's how I operate when I think about the Philadelphia Eagles.
It's true.
Because money doesn't really feel like an object, and part of it is Howie Roseman, and the other part of it is Jeffrey Lurie just being able to throw cash. The guy throws cash like crazy. And I'm not talking about, maybe what people do on their Friday, Saturday nights. I mean in terms of restructuring contracts so that money comes up front. I think about Lane Johnson and the annual restructure where everything turns into a bonus for just being still here. And it's like, this isn't against the salary cap anymore. This is just you getting cash up front. This is you getting your money, restructuring it that way. I'm curious, though, if they did not anticipate this, if they did not anticipate the salary cap jumping like this, the number of guys we might see try and restructure right now and the way they might start to maneuver things right now. Could more money be moved up front right now for flexibility down the line? Could it be moved further down? How does this offseason go in that regard? I'm not smart enough. I'll point blank. I'm not smart enough. I have a communications degree. All right. I did one finance class.
You're selling yourself short, dude. With that 1,500 SAT, come on, man.
Yeah, but think about the education system. No offense here or anything, but we're not doing a lot of finance.
You could figure that
K through 12. That SAT score doesn't have a lot to do with my financial literacy. Just ask anyone that's around me during tax season. I don't know the money. I just assume that the Eagles will get it done with the money. But I think it'll be an interesting offseason from that regard of what they do with the extra cap space, because will it give them flexibility in the now, flexibility in the long term, how they start restructuring guys, and how many guys would get restructured this offseason.
Yeah, it's an interesting talking point. I love your point, though, about if money's no object with Howie. But we're getting some people weighing in on the text board. We got some callers. But on the YouTube chat, JM makes an interesting point before we get into the financials. He says if you traded the 2 first-round picks, you have no first-round picks to get future starters, which could affect you 3 years from now. And we've talked about that a lot. For teams to succeed in a salary cap era, you need guys on their rookie deals contributing. You saw it this season. What made the Philadelphia Eagles so damn good? Look how many guys on their rookie contracts were contributing. You had, obviously, the rookies in Quinyon, Cooper DeJean, and Jalix Hunt. But you also had Jordan Davis is still on a rookie deal. Nolan Smith still on a rookie deal. Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean. All these guys still on rookie contracts. That allows you to compete. So it's a good point by JM. But all those names I just mentioned, they're still very young. So if you have an opportunity to go all in and get a guy like Myles Garrett on a young defense like this, I think I'm okay with how it could impact them 3, 4, even 5 years down the road. Because this window right now, I mean, we've been talking about dynasty. Myles Garrett helps put you over the top.
When's that asteroid supposed to hit?
Yeah, what is that, 2026?
Yeah,
Are you doing everything that the world's ending?
No, but I'm operating as if, look, I have a championship contending window right now. 3 to 4, 5 years from now in terms of do they have starters then? Guess what? That's not promised. In this league, the whole not for long cliche, you look at 5 years down the line, yes, I would love for Jalen Hurts still to be the quarterback here. I'd love for A.J. Brown to still be a star here. I'd love for Devontae Smith to still be a star here. I'd love for Sirianni, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'd love for Sirianni and crew to still be running the show and excelling at a high level. You know what I have right now? I have a championship nucleus. Can I go out and get one of the best defensive players on the market to add to this nucleus? Yes. I'll worry about 3 years and 3 years, all right? And if they win another Super Bowl, guess what? You're not going to be coming back to me and saying, whoa, what about that 2029 starting lineup? What about the starting 22 then? With all due respect, Jam, I'm just not concerned about that.
I like where your head's at. And look, I said that they're going to have to figure out a way to free up some cap space. So when we get back, I do want to look at these 2 players on the defensive side of the football that I think are probably gone. One of them, everyone's going to say, good riddance, don't worry about it. The other, I think, may raise some concerns. But we'll talk about that and what that could mean for this Philadelphia Eagles team. We'll continue the Myles Garrett conversation because it's a fun conversation. But this conversation coming up next with these 2 players that may not be here next year, not necessarily a fun conversation because it does make me a little bit concerned. We'll talk about all of it coming up. This is the Mike Missanelli Show. You got Bill Colarulo, Ray Dunn. Keep it here.
The Philadelphia 76ers
8:43 here on 97.5 The Fanatic. You got Bill Colarulo and Ray Dunn today in for Mikey Miss. We're having some fun today. And believe it or not, I know the parade was a week ago, and people think, oh, well, we got some time until the offseason's in full swing for the Eagles. Well, not really, because the Combine starts next week. You got free agency starting March 10th. You got the draft in April. The NFL is now an all-year event, and that's why they are king. And that's why they continue to make more and more profits and revenue, which drives up the salary cap. So now, Howie Roseman's got more money to spend. And if you ever give Howie Roseman more money to spend, it lets him do some unbelievable things. And we're hoping one of those unbelievable things is Myles Garrett. Because if you put him on a defense that includes Jalen Carter, watch out. I don't know how you stop him. But one of the things they may have to do, in addition to giving up draft capital, we've been talking about this all morning, is maybe free up some cap space, because even though they have about $19 million right now with the projected cap of $279.5, they can create some more cap space, but doing so may make us a little bit nervous, right? Because here's the way that they could do it. They can clear up $9 million in cap space, which I expect to happen, by letting go of James Bradbury, right? No one's going to really bat an eye over that, although JB, I got to give him a lot of credit, was a true veteran this season. You never heard him complain, didn't really hear anything about him, and apparently behind the scenes he helped these young corners immensely.
He helped one of them at the parade immensely.
He got in front of Quinyon, so he didn't say anything dumb when Quinyon was hammered.
Where were you trying to get the mic away from me at the parade?
I know, I should have. Well, you didn't say anything inappropriate.
No,
although those clips
thankfully
are going up soon, apparently, on our social media.
Yes,
of
it
the
has
man
been
on
a
the
lot
street.
of fun.
The man on the
Engaging
street.
with all of you here at 97.5 The Fanatic.
So,
Mind you, those were taken at 8 in the morning.
They were, and everybody was feeling really good.
Yeah. All of us.
So Bradbury will get cut. I think that's a guarantee, because it'll save you $4.7 million on the cap this season, $17.9 million on the cap next season. So that's a no-brainer. But here's the big one. Darius Slay. Big play Slay, who still has me blocked on Twitter. Let me remind everybody of that. No clue why, but maybe now he's going to block me double because I'm going to say cut him. But as much as I like Darius Slay, I think it's time to move on, because if you were to move on from him with a post-June 1st designation, you would save $4.3 million against the cap this year, $17.8 million against the cap next year. So just those two moves, Slay and Bradbury, you get an extra $9 million. Now it brings you up to about $28.5 million in cap space. But here's the question, Ray. If you move on from Slay, not Bradbury because he didn't really contribute this year on the field, but if you move on from Slay, does that make you concerned at all about the secondary? Do you think there's now, because Slay's still playing at a high level. He had a very good season this year. What does that do for you with the secondary if you no longer have the veteran Darius Slay back there?
Bradbury was an All-Pro in 2022?
He was.
And 2023 went how?
He was terrible.
It happens fast in your 30s as a corner.
I keep waiting for Slay to drop off, and it hasn't happened yet. You're right.
He wants one more year. You can have that 1 year with one of the other 31 organizations. Love Slay. Love what he's brought. Let's wrap this up on a good note. Okay, let's wrap this up on the Super Bowl high, where he was a part of ushering in the next generation of the secondary here in Philadelphia. You could save the money. You could use that money. Maybe you feel like internally you like what Isaiah Rodgers brings. Maybe that's that. Some of that money goes there.
And Rodgers is a free agent. Rodgers is a free agent.
So maybe there's something there. Maybe you're going out. You know, I ultimately think that you probably are going to try internally to fix it, because we've heard for so long. I mean, even going back 2022, 2023. Oh, look at all the young corners this team has. Look at the number of guys they feel good about. Well, it's time for one of them to step up and really take that next step and be a starter on this defense. And to Quinyon Mitchell's credit and to Cooper DeJean's credit, they were fantastic this year. I mean, that's what you have. Do I want to move Cooper DeJean outside? I don't know about that.
Well, yeah, that's the question.
I think he was fantastic.
Do you
inside.
move Coop outside?
I think you probably look for another outside corner.
See, now I am, and I have been high on Keely Ringo. Like, I think Keely Ringo is a very good corner. I expected him to have a bigger role this season than he did, and it didn't necessarily surprise me once I saw how well Quinyon Mitchell was playing, and you had Slay, that, okay, Ringo's not going to get an opportunity. But what surprised me was the first man off the bench wasn't Keely, it was Isaiah Rodgers, who you mentioned is also a free agent. So if you let go of Slay, and I'm with you, I don't think I want to move Coop outside.
No.
I think I want to keep Cooper DeJean at that nickel corner, because that's not an easy corner spot.
If you figure it out, good for you. Stay there.
Yeah. That's not an easy corner spot, and we're seeing more and more of these NFL offenses. They love to move guys inside and try to get mismatches. Let's keep Quignon on the one side, keep Cooper DeJean in the slot, but who's your outside corner? Is it Isaiah Rodgers? Do you try to re-sign him, or do you trust Akili Ringo? Or do you have to go out there and maybe get a veteran again? The problem with that is, well, then you're letting go of Slay. If you bring in another veteran, you're probably going to have to pay him more than what Slay's cap hit is this season. So do you just go young? I think the answer is maybe you just have to go young.
Well, you could go with the idea of going young. I don't know what the market's going to be for Slay out there. I really haven't jumped into who's looking, who might overextend themselves for Slay, but I think you have to go with that decision to cut him to open up that cap space. And if the opportunity for a reunion presents itself, okay, maybe. But down the line, I think going young is the right choice in this regard, with the fact of his age, what typically happens to corners at his age. He was a revolution this year to be playing as much as he did, to be a starting corner in this league, and to play at the level that he's did. I can't expect lightning to strike twice. And I know that sounds really harsh, and it's like we're talking about someone that has done a ton for the city and probably doesn't get the credit he deserves from the city because people are
very
still
underrated.
Upset with, he was on podcast.
Well, yeah, it's what he does after games that makes people upset.
Right.
But you're right.
Like blocking Bill Colarulo on Twitter.
That's right, for no reason.
Free Bill.
But the old cliche, it's better to move on from a player a year too soon than a year too late.
Right.
So,
and we already learned that. Like, I feel like we've learned both runs to the Super Bowl of the last 8, I guess both runs post-Super Bowl. Like, you think 18 after 17, and then after you lose in 22 to 23. I think we learned that thank you contracts are not the way to go about doing this.
Agreed 100%. And obviously, we're talking about our Fantasy Friday here. You're pretending to be Howie Roseman. You put on the Howie Roseman cap, get that little mark on your head. You bleed for this city. What would you do this offseason? And mainly, we're looking at it as, can you take that big swing and go for a guy like Myles Garrett? And I think we got a couple minutes. I'm gonna just get Will in because he's been holding on what he would give up for Myles Garrett. What's up, Will? You're on the Fanatic. Will.
If it took 2 first rounds and they wanted Jalen Hunt and what's the other guy?
Bryce Huff?
Bryce Huff, yeah.
Oh, man, you'd give up Jalen Hunt? See, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I'm thinking about, I like Jalen Hunt.
I mean, you got to think about what he did this year, Will, as a third-round draft pick out of Houston Christian, who was playing safety 2 years ago at Cornell, and he has a sack in the Super Bowl. I mean, I think this kid could turn into being one of the best pass rushers in the league. Obviously, Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett, but I don't know if I want to give up on Jalen Hunt just yet, man. I don't know if I want to include him. He'd be off limits for me.
He's off limits now?
For me, he'd be off limits. Yeah, I wouldn't include him.
Okay.
Well, because think about it. If you included him, even though you're getting Myles Garrett, you got a severe lack of depth now because you're going to lose Brandon Graham. So you have Nolan Smith. You'd have Garrett, obviously, who's a beast. Who else you got?
And Jomo. You got still.
And Jomo's a D tackle, though. So you're going to have a Jomo inside.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have Brandon Graham's going to retire. Josh Sweat, you're probably going to lose in free agency, which we're going to talk about in a second. So I'm out. But you would do. I'm hearing you, even though we disagree on Jalen Hunt, you'd give up pretty much anything to get Myles.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you said you want, I mean, this is a lifetime opportunity to go back to back. And then, these opportunities don't come.
That's right, Will.
Many.
They don't.
I mean, I love Jalen Hunt, but we can always get another Jalen Hunt in the future. But I'm trying to win now, back to back, possibly another third. A third. If we get back to back, then I want another third. I want to be greedy.
Dynasty, Will.
Yes, right. While we have this team now, we might as well go all in.
Dynasty, Will says. I don't know, Ray. I know that it's just crazy because Jalen Hunt.
Untouchable.
He's not untouchable necessarily, but you will not have enough depth on that defensive line if you let go of a guy like Jalen Hunt. Like, you're going to lose Sweat. Well, here's what we're going to do. When we get back, I want to take a look at the defensive free agents for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Because now this will get us a better picture of where things are. And this is, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing for the Eagles. CBS Sports ranked their top 25 defensive free agents in the entire National Football League. When I tell you where some Eagles landed on that list. I think this is actually a bad thing for the Eagles.
Did you fall in the top 25?
I did not, but I'll explain coming up next. Keep it here.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Cam Jurgens has back surgery. I'm Sean Rodman, and this is your Fanatic Sports Update. Jurgens fought through a back injury in the NFC Championship game and Super Bowl and reportedly underwent surgery on Tuesday to alleviate a nerve pain. Jurgens is expected to make a full recovery by July in time for training camp, and A.J. Brown did some media rounds yesterday as he highlighted his love for Kevin Patullo's promotion as the new offensive coordinator.
I truly feel like it's a great hire. He already has been involved in almost everything. Him, Kellen, and Nick basically called the plays already. So it's a great hire.
The Sixers lose by 20 to the Celtics last night with the Sixers' big three all playing. Paul George confirmed post-game he has been receiving treatment on his finger. It was reported late last week that he received injections in his finger in order to play. This update is sponsored by Allstate. Some people just know you could save money on car insurance by checking Allstate first. So what are you waiting for? Check Allstate first for a quote today. You're in good hands with Allstate. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the 76ers and Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
You can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com.
Everybody, we're having some fun here on the Fanatic today, pretending to be Howie Roseman. What we would do this offseason. Number one, Ray and I both would take that big swing and do whatever it takes to get Myles Garrett. Although I say whatever it takes, and I just told the caller, but Jalix Hunt would be off limits.
Untouchable. Jalix Hunt went from a third-round project to don't you dare include a trade for Myles Garrett.
But here's why I say that. Because the Eagles have some tough decisions to make on the defensive side of the football. And you could still get in on the Myles Garrett conversation. What would you give up to get him?
I have someone checking in on the Myles Garrett conversation, what they give up.
All right, what do you got?
Connor Thomas, today, who filled in for one Andrew Salciunas, said he would send Salciunas to Cleveland for Myles Garrett. I have the text to prove it.
Well, I don't know if Cleveland would want our man Chunas, but...
Whoa, what?
No.
I mean, listen, I wouldn't send Chunas in the deal, but if Chunas was the difference between Myles Garrett being here and not being here, I love you, Andrew, but like...
I love Andrew, too, and I actually got to digress for 1 second. So last night, Andrew Salciunas called me because apparently there was a mistake on the Fanatic website over the last couple of months that when you go to email Bill Colarulo, you actually email Andrew Salciunas. And he said that there was a guy who's been emailing him a bunch, and I apologize, I don't know who it is. And that same gentleman sent over one of the most fire remix renditions of Sirianni Love that you will ever hear. It's 2.5 minutes of pure gold. I'm not going to play it because it's too long. We'll see if Mike wants to play it next week. But if you want to listen to it, head on over to my Twitter. I got it pinned to my Twitter, at Bill Colarulo, and listen to Sirianni Love. It's 2.5 minutes of gold, and I'm not exaggerating, Ray. You agree with that?
Oh, it was fantastic. I appreciate the effort that was put into it, truthfully.
A lot of effort.
It's still, it's good. They did a good job with it. Your voice will, I don't know how to put this.
All right, I'm cutting you off now because people are listening to the WPEN and WPEN HD1 Burlington, Philadelphia, a Beasley Media Group station broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studio, powering possibilities. Ray, don't take a shot at my voice. Not today.
I didn't. I stopped. I didn't do it. I'm being nice.
But actually, I have a texter on Ray's voice as well.
What do we got on Ray's voice?
Sounds like Seinfeld.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just wanted to know, has anyone ever told Ray that his voice sometimes sounds like Jimmy Fallon's impression of Jerry Seinfeld?
I thought they were going to say Fallon. That was it for me. I was curtains for my media career. If I sound like Jimmy Fallon, I failed. But
no, you're fine, Ray.
Yeah, I get the Seinfeld thing all the time. I'm sorry, guys.
You're fine. You and
I just get upset.
We're being nice to each other today. But yeah, if you go over to my Twitter and listen to that, drop me a comment underneath and let me know what you think. Because honestly, I was in hysterics last night listening to it when Salciunas sent it over. He said him and his son Coop were rocking out to it before they sent it. But let's get back to the Philadelphia Eagles free agency this summer because we keep talking about, and rightfully so, that this team has a real possibility to repeat, that we could be starting a dynasty. I know John Kincade gets mad when we use the word dynasty. They've only won one. But you look at the future and you look at this roster and think, well, there's no reason why it couldn't be. But CBS Sports put out their list of top 25 defensive free agents in the entire National Football League. And I think this is bad news for the Philadelphia Eagles. In the top 25, the number 1, number 2, and number 3 best available defensive free agents are all Philadelphia Eagles. Number 1, they have Josh Sweat. Number 2, Zack Bond. And number 3, Milton Williams. So as we pretend to be Howie Roseman today, Ray, of those 3, what are you doing? Who you bringing back? Who you trying to keep? Because I'll tell you my answer after I hear yours.
All right, real quick. Most important Milton in Pennsylvania history, Hershey or Williams?
I love Milton Williams. But I'll go with Milton Hershey.
I'm going to go with Williams. Personally. All right, with that thought. So I've been thinking a lot about the fact that I forget what article it was I sent along the way this week that it had Bond and Becton as like the 2 guys to prioritize or they imagined would keep for the Eagles. I really do want to prioritize Bond in a way they haven't with linebackers before. It's very hard for me to say defensive player of the year candidate that you picked up should just go by the wayside. And this is one of those, like, I don't want to say it's like Howie drunk with his success, but it's kind of Howie drunk with his success where he's like, oh, we found one of these linebackers before. We'll do it again. It's like, yeah, you do that like every other year. or every couple of years. You don't actually hit on it every year, and I kind of want to be competitive every year. And Fangio's talked about the importance of having good linebackers. So I would want to keep Bond. My problem is I think you're going to end up paying premium dollar for two defensive linemen, for one of those two defensive linemen, where the premium production might not be there. I lean to keeping Sweat over Williams.
Oh, you're crazy.
I lean to keep Sweat over Williams.
Crazy.
Because I think if you put a lot of interior defensive linemen next to Jalen Carter, they enjoy a career-type year. The difference is with Williams, the one argument I'll take for Williams is the fact that he still can kick outside a little bit and give you some flexibility there. But I think I'm wiping the brow for another year if I have to prioritize someone other than Bond. Bond's my top priority. If they could keep one of the other two of them, I'm probably going Josh Sweat.
Yeah, you see, I think you're crazy on the Josh Sweat over Milton Williams. We both agree, and I think this is universal across the board. I don't think we'll find a single person in the city of Philadelphia who would say not to re-sign Zack Bond. I mean, what this guy did in his first year, mind you, of really playing the position, you got to do whatever you got to do to sign him. Now, here's the issue, though, with Bond, because you talk about kind of overpaying him. What is it going to take? You look at some of the top-paid linebackers in the NFL. Roquan Smith makes $20 a year. Fred Warner makes $19 a year. Tremaine Edmonds in Chicago, $18 million a year. But that was when the salary cap was $20 million plus less. So everything's relative. There's a reason why every time a guy signs a contract, he's now the highest paid player at that position because the cap goes up. Now, I'm not saying Bond's going to get Roquan Smith money, but if you're Zack Bond's agent, you're telling him, listen, you're not taking a hometown discount. You already went through your rookie contract in New Orleans. You took a one-year prove-it deal here in Philly. You got to get paid, man, because NFL, not for long, the old cliche. I just hope that Howie Roseman doesn't say, too rich for our blood. I'm not paying a linebacker, $15, $16 million a year.
What have they been better at finding? Defensive front, to me. So, you found a linebacker, you keep the linebacker. That to me, Bond is the ultimate priority for me. And you also talking about Sweat. I think the interesting thing when we start the show talking about Myles Garrett. Get Myles Garrett, Josh Sweat. I'll replay those highlights from the Super Bowl. I'll still wipe the brow in celebration with you. You could go ahead. I got Myles Garrett now. I'm cool. Thanks. Appreciate you. Then you could change your priorities here. But also, if you are not, if you are going to bring in a Myles Garrett and you're going to end up forfeiting that draft capital, maybe that changes the priorities you have with an interior defensive lineman like Milton Williams. I just saw this was pointed out in the YouTube chat. This is something I was thinking about yesterday while I was kind of racking my brain in the offseason. This is apparently a great defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman draft.
Yeah, it's deep. That's what I'm hearing, too.
If it is, and, I got to check in. I texted Andrew DeCecco because I haven't seen him in, weeks. Just want to make sure he was doing okay. I texted me, hey, man, everything good with you? Just making sure you're okay. When I finally have my check-in and start talking with him about the combine, talking about the draft, and pick his brain a little bit on the interior defensive line, I think I'm not going to prioritize Williams because I feel like there is an ability to play alongside Jalen Carter. I feel like there is the ability in this draft to go get an interior defensive lineman. And you mentioned it earlier, talking about Myles Garrett. You look at the depth out there on the outside of this defensive line. It's pretty shallow coming out of this year. If I have a chance to retain one of those guys, I'm doing it.
See, I just think Josh Sweat, especially with his performance in the Super Bowl, which he had a phenomenal Super Bowl, he's going to go out, he's going to get a big payday. And as much as I've liked Josh Sweat during his time here, he was drafted here. Like I said, had a huge Super Bowl. Arguably could have been the Super Bowl MVP. I've seen him disappear for too many stretches where he's gone too many games in a row without making an impact. And I don't want to overpay for a guy that's going to then come in and have that same impact. Whereas Milton Williams, Ray, knowing what we know about the Philadelphia Eagles and the way that they like to build their team, they like to build on both sides, the interior lines out, and they like to build along that defensive line. And you're right, they have had success in finding defensive tackles. I just think Milton Williams is a stud. We agree Zack Bond priority, but if it came down to Williams or Sweat, I'm taking Milton Williams.
Career year for an interior defensive lineman in a year in which your team goes to the Super Bowl. Was that paid for in 2022, or was that allowed to walk?
You talking about Javon Hargrave?
Yeah.
Well, Hargrave was allowed to walk, but there was a little bit different. Javon Hargrave was not as young as Milton Williams is now. Milton Williams is only finishing his fourth year in the NFL. Hargrave was older because Hargrave, the Eagles got him from Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken. Right. He was a little older, and the 49ers paid him a ton. I don't know if Williams gets that type of
salary
payback.
cap expanding, a younger defensive player that you think is right now growing into their prime versus older guy that, look how it went for Hargrave. Like,
we'll continue this conversation on the other side because I got an interesting stat about Milton Williams that maybe will change your mind. And along these lines of the top 25 defensive free agents, we still want to hear from you. If you were Howie Roseman, who would you prioritize on that defense? You can get in 610-632-0975. And Fox Sports, they put out 32 biggest NFL questions. So every biggest question per NFL team. And the big question they have for the Eagles is right in line with this conversation. I'll explain it on the other side.
Tyrone Johnson.
Nick Sirianni clearly
Everybody, you got Bill Colarulo, Ray Dunn today, filling in for Mikey Miss on this cold, frigid Friday. Our man Mike may be in warmer weather, but I'm sure he'll tell you all about it on Monday. He'll be back. But we're having some fun today because, believe it or not, even though it feels like yesterday the Eagles won the Super Bowl, the planning forward already begins because the offseason's here. We haven't talked much, Ray. I mean, the window has opened for franchise tags. And we're spending a lot of time today looking at like pending free agents for the Eagles and what would they do. They could technically franchise tag some of these guys. The Eagles just don't do it. Like, I don't like spending any time on the franchise tag because the Eagles have not tagged anyone since 2012. And when you look at the franchise tag in the NFL, they don't differentiate between inside linebackers and outside linebackers. So the idea of franchising Zack Bond makes zero sense because you would pay him like one of the top edge rushers in the league.
And that's not going to happen. Yeah, It's weird. Spending time on things that would never happen is not really a big thing that we like to do.
Yeah,
here.
No one's getting franchise tagged.
No. Like, up in Boston, they did like 3 weeks on A.J. Brown getting traded to the Patriots. I mean, I understand they got to fill time now because their Patriots stink. But, we're not going to do things that aren't actually happening. Sorry, that really bothered me. The fact they hire Vrabel and everyone was like, oh, they're going to trade for A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's so clearly upset. I'll break out in Inner Excellence right now if you want. It's a good book.
A.J. Brown's not going anywhere, man. I still don't get that. I mean, I remember this summer being on the air, and there was this, I don't know if it was a rumor or this topic that was started by another station that we will leave unnamed, talking about trading A.J. Brown. I'm like, what are you, nuts? He's probably the best wide receiver we've ever had in the history of the franchise. Like, what are we doing? So I'm glad all that's finally put to bed. But there are some big questions on the defensive side of the football, and we started talking about them. One is, pipe dream, go get Myles Garrett. And we threw out the question to everybody, what would you give up to get Myles Garrett? You can still get in on that conversation, 610-632-0975. But now that's also now brought our focus to all of these free agents on the defensive side of the football. And CBS Sports, when they rank their top 25 in the NFL, number 1, 2, and 3 are Philadelphia Eagles defensive players. You got Josh Sweat, number 1, Bond, number 2, Milton Williams, number 3. Ray and I are in agreement on this, and I think the entire city of Philadelphia is in agreement. You do what you got to do to sign Zack Bond. But where Ray and I disagree is he would prioritize Josh Sweat over Milton Williams, and for me, it's actually not even close. I'm taking Milton Williams. I think the guy has gotten better every single season that he's been in the NFL. He's still only going to be entering his 5th year in the NFL. He's an absolute beast. You saw what he did in the Super Bowl. You saw what he can do putting him next to Jalen Carter. And here's an interesting stat, Ray, and I know this is going to be skewed a little bit, but I like my stats.
Of course, yeah. Not in the yellow legal pad.
It's not. I saw this one this morning on Twitter.
Whoa.
Milton Williams has more career playoff sacks than Micah Parsons and T.J. Watt combined, and he's only 25 years old.
Okay.
Skewed a little bit, I know.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Don't let the facts get in the way of a good argument, Ray.
Well, no, that's a terrible argument. He's got more playoff sacks than me, too. Like, what do you want from me here? Oh, Micah Parsons. And what, T.J. Watt?
Milton Williams, baby.
The beacon of success in the 2010s and 2020s, the Cowboys and the Steelers.
Yes, the beacon of success.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's
Congrats.
funny. Well, the Steelers used to be, and the Cowboys used to be.
Wait, does he have more than Myles Garrett, too?
You know what? He may.
He probably does.
He probably does, Ray. Good point.
No, actually, I'm sure Myles Garrett had. They played one last year, right?
They played one, yes.
Yeah, they played one.
I'll find it.
That was when Joe Flacco's Cinderella story hit midnight.
Yeah.
Right? You remember that whole thing?
Comeback player of the year, though.
But here's an interesting thing. So Fox Sports came out with the biggest questions for all 32 NFL teams. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, the big question is, how will they rebuild the defensive line that powered them through the Super Bowl? It says, never mind that quarterback Jalen Hurts was the Super Bowl MVP. Everyone saw what the Eagles' defense, particularly their front four, did to the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. But big changes are coming. Josh Sweat is scheduled to be a free agent and will most certainly leave after taking a pay cut to stay last season. Brandon Graham is headed towards retirement. Defensive tackle Milton Williams is a free agent too. The Eagles won't have a ton of cap room to replace them either. And then it talks about Nolan Smith, Jay Luxon, and Bryce Huff. And that's an interesting question because Howie Roseman now has to make the decision, Milton Williams or Josh Sweat. And you and I are torn on that, so I am curious. I want to throw that question out to our listeners. If it came down to Josh Sweat or Milton Williams on this defense, where are you prioritizing your cap dollars? I'm going Milton Williams. It's not even close. Ray, you're going Josh Sweat.
I'm curious for you, though. If you could have phrased it a different way for me, that really would have hit home. Milton Williams has as many postseason sacks as T.J. Watt, Micah Parsons, and Myles Garrett combined. Because that's the stat right there.
There it is. That's the stat.
That's the stat. Look, yeah, those two stats. By the way, everyone that's going against me that I could see right now is, well, Josh Sweat's a one-game merchant that he had in the Super Bowl. That stat is a one-game merchant, too, because he had 2 sacks in the Super Bowl.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
He's a great player. I don't want to take away from
and I don't even care about Milt Williams' stats when it comes to sacks. I see what he does on the interior there next to Jalen Carter.
Oh.
If you let Milton Williams walk, though, right?
Next to Jalen Carter, very important.
How much faith do you have in 7th-rounder Moro Ojomo, who did come on? Mm-hmm. You know, you've seen him grow as well, but he's going to have to step in and replace that Milton Williams role. Do you have faith that Moro Ojomo can do it?
Do I know for sure that he's going to have to? Are we not drafting an interior defensive lineman? Well, hey, man, you found a cornerback from Cornell 2 years ago that became a great edge rusher. Now the question is,
what's the likelihood?
Does Hurt end up taking a job elsewhere? Clint Hurt, does he end up?
If he hasn't yet, he's here. That's my opinion.
Kellen Moore hasn't finished things up down there.
He hasn't, but he interviewed Christian Parker, the secondary coach. He didn't interview Clint Hurt.
Don't you take Christian Parker
I don't
from
believe.
either. Good for you, Christian Parker.
I think Brandon Staley's a front runner there, which I hope. Like, you took Nussmeier, you took the run game coordinator assistant to Stoutland. You're done now.
I'm just saying, everyone, like Stoutland, everyone, like just bowing at the feet of, as you should, for what he's done here. The defensive line this season, Carter all of a sudden could play a full season. You saw Milton Williams play probably the best year of his career. Nolan Smith went from a bust to, everyone's favorite player. Josh Sweat had the big Super Bowl. Moro Ojomo went from a 7th-rounder that was a key rotational player. Like Clint Hurt, if we're starting to throw flowers at people's feet here, I know we love building in the trenches and everything Stoutland U's done. Maybe we should a little Clint Hurt love. Hit it.
Yeah.
Let's get the song going.
Clint Hurt.
Clint Hurt.
No, it doesn't work. You got to come up with one. My new favorite is for Mikey Miss, the Hold Me Closer Robbie Thompson song. Because for whatever reason, he's a Rob Thompson apologist. But look, we're going to continue this conversation about the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously. But I do want to change gears a little bit. I know we got a lot of texts on the Eagles. We'll get back to it. We'll get back to the free agency, what you would do, who would you prioritize. But I want to change gears a little bit, and I know this may make some people upset that we have to talk about it. But the Sixers, in their first game back from the All-Star break last night, where we were told they're going to make that playoff push, got crushed by the Celtics. And some things were said by Joel Embiid and Paul George after the game. Where is it time to just shut things down? So we'll do a little Sixers talk coming up. We'll get back to the Eagles. But keep it here. We got a fun show.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Cam Jurgens has back surgery. I'm Sean Rodman, and this is your Fanatic Sports Update. Jurgens fought through a back injury in the NFC Championship game and Super Bowl and reportedly underwent surgery on Tuesday to alleviate a nerve pain. Jurgens is expected to make a full recovery by July in time for the start of training camp. A.J. Brown did some media rounds yesterday as he highlighted his love for Kevin Patullo's promotion as the Eagles' new offensive coordinator.
I truly feel like it's a great hire. He already has been involved in almost everything. Him, Kellen, and Nick basically called the plays already. So it's a great hire.
The Sixers lose by 20 to the Celtics last night, with the Sixers' big three all playing. Paul George confirmed post-game that he has been receiving treatment on his finger. It was reported last week that he was receiving injections in his finger in order to play. This update is sponsored by the Truiza Championship at Philadelphia Cricket Club. The PGA's Truiza Championship will be played at Philadelphia Cricket Club in early May. Watch top tour players and enjoy a variety of fan activities. Tickets on sale at TruizaChampionship.com. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the 76ers and Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
forgive us. Ray is mourning over here because he just found out.
Whoa, no.
That Hooters is in bankruptcy.
You see things that I say, wow, look what I just saw on Twitter, and now this gets thrown as Ray's upset. I have not stepped foot in one.
We're right about to come on the air, and he's signaling to me, yo, Hooters is in bankruptcy. He's so upset over here, Ray.
Oh, Ray, are your words getting twisted?
Let's
like how you twist my words on the weekend all the time?
Okay, Sean, please pipe down up there. Relax.
Okay.
Please. Look at the two people sitting right here. Tell me which one of the two of us has stepped in more in their lives.
I will say this. When I was in high school.
The wings are fantastic.
I swear, man. When I was in high school, me and my friends loved going to Hooters for the wings. Now, I have not been to Hooters in 15 years. I'm telling you, 15 years, maybe longer. But the wings were good because they bread them. They're like breaded wings. Anyway, Ray's very upset.
I haven't been, so I wouldn't know.
So bear with him. But I have something that's going to make Ray even more upset. So we're doing a lot of Eagles talk today. We will get back to it as we pretend to be Howie Roseman today. We will get back to our free agency planning with Howie. But we got to talk about the Sixers. So the Sixers come out of the All-Star break last night. There was still, I guess, a glimmer of hope, if you wanted to call it that they could play their way into the 10 seed, get into the play-in tournament. We outlined it yesterday on the show with Mikey Miss of a crazy way that they could actually get to the Eastern Conference Finals, although we were kind of being facetious.
No, they're going.
But they get crushed last night by the Boston Celtics. Joel Embiid looks like a shell of himself. Paul George doesn't look great. The whole team just looks terrible. And Joel Embiid, after the game last night, kind of admitted that there's something going on. Listen to Joel.
Joe, setting aside being healthy enough just to play, are there specific things that you feel like you can't do or don't trust your knee enough to do right now that you've relied on in the past?
I don't know. I'm sure you can figure it out. The way I was playing a year ago, it's not the way I'm playing right now, and it sucks. But I believe I just probably need, to fix the problem, and then I'll be back at that level. But it's hard to have the trust when you're not yourself. And I'm not as dominant as I was a couple months ago. But that doesn't mean I still can't have a lot of impact on the game. Just me being out there, I think, helps a lot. Just my presence, ability to attract double teams, getting guys more shots. But my dominant self, I get that. No, it's just tough because you can do so much more, but when there's no excuses. It's just the way it is. Just gotta keep finding ways to figure it out and get better.
All right, so there's a lot in there. It's been a frustrating season, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to turn it over to Ray. Because Ray has been chomping at the bit. It's a shame Mikey Miss isn't here because I'm sure he would have gone on a rant with all of this too. But Ray, how do you feel after what you watched last night and what you just heard from Joel?
All right, we had the ultimate news dump the day of the Super Bowl where they play the Bucs and on ESPN they're like, yeah, Embiid thinks he needs another surgery. And that just got wiped away because the day after the Eagles win the Super Bowl, what are we going to sit here and debate with the merits of Joel Embiid having surgery? They're perfectly placed there for no one to talk about. ESPN broadcast, Embiid might need another surgery on his knee. Have you watched this team play? Have we watched this team now enough to know what this team is this season? Paul George said he's getting 5 injections to play a game. He's got the pinky injury. He scored 2 points in the game without Embiid max the day before the All-Star game. Embiid is saying at this point, I need a fix. I need to be fixed. I can only assume that's going back and him not being directly saying that ESPN report is pretty much on point. What are they throwing away the future for to chase this season? If Embiid thinks he can still get back to being that dominant player, but right now he's not that dominant player, right now he's not feeling like he's that dominant player and needs the fix, is his presence right now going to be the difference that gets this team from a 10 seed? Like, we do this thing all the time in sports media. Well, if he's available at 80%, is that good enough for you? 75%. We love to percentage people's injuries right now. 100% of this Sixers season has sucked. It's been horrible. It's been a horrible product to engage with. They are going to risk the future of this guy who clearly believes he needs his knee to be fixed. To what? Chase a 10 seed? Chase a 9 seed? The ultimate disaster scenario that I keep putting into my head, which might not happen because the Pistons are actually playing well enough where it might not happen, is they fight all the way to get in the play-in and Tobias Harris ends their season. It's not that illogical to believe that's a possibility this goes down. They are fighting to get into a play-in so that they don't end up with their first-round pick, so they end up just pushing off Embiid needing to get fixed, Paul George needing to get fixed, just so they could say that this season wasn't a failure. We've watched it. It's been a failure. If Embiid needs to be fixed, why are we sitting here wasting away night after night watching a clearly not right Embiid go out there? It's unbelievable that we're continuing to subject yourself to it, because what are you trying to prove? That right now we know what they are out there. He doesn't look like himself. He hasn't looked like himself for a while now. If there's a chance he believes he can get back to being dominant, this whole sitting it out, trying to figure it out, trying to make things happen, that's not the way to do this. This season's not worth it. At this point, this season's not worth it.
I have not seen you this worked up since when Mike Missanelli accused you of not getting into Penn State and choosing Temple over it.
Which also is ridiculous. I showed him the admissions thing.
But listen, you're spot on, right? That's why I'm just letting you go. There becomes a point where you just cut your losses and move on. And I guess I could understand a few weeks ago Daryl Morey and Josh Harris and the Sixers powers to be at B, whatever, holding out hope and not wanting to admit that the season was a failure, that the moves that they made in the offseason were a failure. Now, I thought the first step was when they traded Caleb Martin. Okay, you admitted that was a mistake. Paul George looks terrible, and you're right. They should not have given Joel Embiid that contract extension, but they did.
Oh, that's not what I said. I didn't say any of that.
I mean, you're right that the season is kind of being washed. I personally don't think they should have given him the extension, but they did. So at this point, why are they risking his future? He's under contract here. There's nothing they're going to be able to do with it. This team's not doing anything. Even if they somehow work their way into the 10 spot. We've talked about this, Ray. We talked about it yesterday. If they get into the 10, and even if somehow they get past Atlanta and then Orlando in one game in the play-in, they're not beating Cleveland in a 7-game series. So, what are we even pushing for? Do the Sixers think that the fan base will somehow be like, well, at least they went for it?
No. At least they went for what? The whole joke yesterday was, oh, yeah, we built out this path where they get to the conference finals, because that's at this point where people are aspiring to just get past the second round. Right now, the aspiration is to get in position to get into the play-in. They're not in the play-in. Daryl Morey says you have to squint to see our championship odds. No, I have to close my eyes and fall asleep, because dreaming is the only thing I have right now that could give me the idea of a Sixers championship. It's not realistic this season, and you're continuing to throw away Embiid's future by forcing him to play in the present. Okay, maybe it doesn't get better. Maybe it really, this is now really how deep down the dark path of thought I am with this organization, where they're at. I know a lot of people you're just getting here now? I've been here for years. Well, yeah, you probably hate Joel Embiid, so that's why you've been there for years. But there has finally been the thought process in my head, yeah, maybe it won't get better for him. Maybe it doesn't end up getting better. But if there's a thought process in his brain that if he gets knee surgery, like it was reported on ESPN the day of the Super Bowl that none of us talked about because it was so perfectly news dumped into a broadcast the day of the Super Bowl, and he actually gets that surgery, and there's a chance for him to be ready for the start of next season, let's go with that, because you're not getting anything. There's no payoff for March and April of this season.
But the bigger problem here is if they do give up on the season, Ray, they got to get into the bottom 6 so they don't get their first-round draft pick. They could screw themselves by finishing.
This team stinks bad enough for that to happen.
Well, yeah, but that's why I think shut it down now. I don't need them stealing games here or there because you're forcing Joel and Paul George out on the court. But look, Neil Deaver hit it on the head in the YouTube chat. Ray is very upset because he has season tickets, and him and his friends are contemplating what they do with those season tickets.
We're a bunch of 20-somethings look for something to do during the week. This is not like a crazy, hefty financial investment for us. If we're thinking about getting rid of the tickets, that's bad for where this fan base is at.
But listen.
Sorry, I'll calm down. I'll be good by the next segment. I know I got animated. I don't usually get that upset. So
it's Friday.
This was me.
We want to go into the weekend in a good mood. So I'm done with the Sixers talk. Really, I'm done. I think Ray hit it on the head. There's nothing else to say. Shut things down. Shut down Joel Embiid. Try to get him healthy for next season. This season has been a disaster. It's over. Flush it, and we'll see you come October for for 2025-2026 season. That's how I feel about it. But I want to go into the weekend in a good mood. So we're going to talk about the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to put our Howie Roseman hat on. We'll continue to take a look at what we would do. Now that we know who the offensive coordinator is, what we would do going forward in terms of free agency on both sides of the football. So keep it here. We'll get back to the Eagles talk coming up next.
Andrew Salciunas.
Your Eagles are... All right, welcome back in. You got Bill Colarulo and Ray Dunn. No Mikey missed today. He'll be back on Monday.
I took a lap.
Ray took a lap.
I'm okay.
He calmed down. He got it all off his chest about the 76ers after another frustrating performance last night, and then Joel talking after. But we're done with the Sixers talk today. We're done. We're going to try to go into the weekend in a good mood. So what we're doing is we're taking a look putting on our Howie Roseman caps today, pretending that if we were to GM the moves we would make. We started the show talking about Myles Garrett because as crazy as that sounded when he first asked for a trade that the Eagles could potentially get him, where there's smoke, there's fire, and you're starting to hear some NFL insiders on a national level saying, makes a lot of sense for the Eagles. You heard A.J. Brown, I played the clip earlier. He was on a podcast saying that would be his dream, Myles Garrett. So is it a possibility? And what would you give up to get Myles Garrett? Because I think it's going to require more than 2 first-round draft picks. That's what we're hearing coming out of Cleveland. They're saying they don't want to trade him at all, but it looks like it would be at least 2 first-rounders, maybe more. What would you give up? And I think we got some texts on this, but you could still get in 610-632-0975. Sean, what do we got on the text board with regard to Myles Garrett?
First up, we have Ryan from Ridley. He says trade a 2025 and 2026 first-round draft picks and a third-round pick in 2026 because the Eagles have 2 of them, along with Pickett for Garrett. Sign Bond, draft a defensive tackle or guard/tackle in the second. Wouldn't be mad about another offensive weapon also.
Wow, that's a pretty well thought out text message right there. And he is correct. In 2026, the Eagles have 2 third-round draft picks, so you could unload one of those third-rounders. Would that be enough, Ray? 2 first-rounders, a third in 2026, and Kenny Pickett. You think that would get you Myles? Would that get you Myles Garrett in an Eagles uniform?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I like the posturing they do in January when you can't really, like, there's not a lot of negotiation that'll be had at that moment. Like, that posturing to me is not posturing that's going to take place the rest of the offseason. We're not going to take 2 first-round picks. All right. Myles Garrett says he's not going to play for you. You could keep finding him. You could make this a disaster for you, or you could get the most that you could recoup for him right now. Like, also, someone else has to pay him. 2 first-round picks might end up being it, but, like, if a third-round pick's thrown on top of it and a quarterback that could be there for you to try and work with, I imagine you take that deal.
Yeah, the problem, though, is with the Eagles, their first-round pick is not worth what some of these other teams' first-round picks are, simply because the Eagles won the Super Bowl. They got the 32nd pick. You would assume that their 2026 pick is going to be in the bottom of the draft as well. That's why you may have to throw in more just to get them. But
all right, 2 first-round picks are at the back of the first round. There's still 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, but you know the old Jimmy Johnson draft value chart, and higher in the draft is worth more. You ever see that chart? It's pretty awesome. It's still pretty applicable.
I know someone that sits in this chair uses it a ton.
Who's that? Sean Kincade? Yeah, I like using it too. But at the end of the day, we probably just got to trust Howie Roseman, and that's what Jamie from D.C. wants to tell us. What's up, Jamie? You're on the Fanatic.
What's up, fellas? How's everybody today? You guys still hungover from the Super Bowl, or I see we're already talking about free agency and stuff, but what a glorious time to be an Eagles fan.
I sobered up yesterday.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, man. But this is what I love about our city. As excited as everybody is, we're also like, all right, let's keep it going. We're not satisfied. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, and it's great for us, right? Like our professions and stuff, you guys are so blessed with what you guys do. You guys love your job. You guys are great at what you do. But, like, trust the process. Howie is going to make moves. The Garrett thing is totally off my radar. I see you getting rid of Slay. I know he's a good bottle of wine, as Vic likes to call him, but he wants one more year. Everybody wants one more trip. So you got to let Slay go. You got to find some sort of draft. We talked about the drafts with the defensive line. And that's another thing to consider. One guy, Garrett, is just one of many, one spoke in the wheel. And it comes down to Jalen Carter. It comes down to his pressure on the inside, him and Davis, 2 Bulldogs. For the Eagles' sake, man, I don't know. I think you try to bring back Bond, which would be great, because you need a leader out there. You need somebody who has experience and in that kind of secondary. But with Sweat and Milton, if you can get one of them, great. If you can't, but Garrett is completely off the radar, just with the chemistry of that defense, how young they are.
So you wouldn't want Garrett, or you're just saying that's not what you're thinking? You're prioritizing some other things.
I think anyone would want a guy of his talent, but the Eagles' defense is such a young nucleus of guys. We overkicked our coverage with Zack Bond, being a special teamers and stuff. Garrett has a lot of off-the-field issues, a lot of personality, a lot of locker room stuff. He wants out. He wants to find that greener pastures. I don't see it. Can I mention the one thing about the Sixers?
Sure. What you got, man?
Why are we still talking about the Sixers?
I'm with you. I appreciate it, Jamie. Well, I'm with you. They came back out of the All-Star break. I know Ray was upset. We gave him. Well, he had a 5-minute rant, and we moved on.
That's it. I just need a chance to let that out because I saw that quote last night, and I was very upset last night. I woke up this morning. I wanted to see if I had slept on it. And I felt better about it. I did not. So I needed that 5 minutes. I let out the system. I needed to enjoy my weekend, really, and I couldn't enjoy my weekend with that sitting on my brain.
Well, there's something that is sitting on my brain right now, and Sean just puts in because that caller mentioned Myles Garrett has issues off the field.
Yeah,
and he's saying he was the Walter Payton Man of the Year in 2020.
Right. Yeah.
And we also know he gets along well. At least it appears he gets along well with a few of the Eagles already. Him and Mailata have a weird connection already, but
he wants to get out of Cleveland
because Cleveland's terrible.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
get it.
If you worked for a bad business in Cleveland, Ohio, I understand they're trying with their tourism department to do the move to Ohio thing. Have you seen these commercials where the couple falls in love with the guy that just moved to Ohio?
I did not.
No, this has been a national campaign to do it. Move to Ohio. If you worked for a bad business in Cleveland, Ohio, you'd want to get out of there. Heck, LeBron won a title and still left there again.
Yeah, I have not seen it, but I wouldn't want to be.
Someone else has seen this Ohio tourism
But
department.
even more than Ohio, you don't want to play for the Cleveland Browns.
Correct.
But, now, that caller said he'd be okay with letting Darius Slay walk. If you remember, we talked about that a little bit earlier in the show, so just if you weren't tuned in, the Eagles can clear up $4.3 million in cap space this season and $17.8 million in cap space next season if they move on from Darius Slay with a post-June 1st designation. That's the key. And if they move on from James Bradbury as well, that would free up another 4.7 this year, another 17.9 next year. So I think there's zero possibility that Slay and Bradbury are back, which opens up some question marks in the secondary. But I think what more people want to see is the Philadelphia Eagles re-sign Zack Bond. Me and Ray may disagree about some other free agents, but we're in lockstep. You got to sign Zack Bond. And that's what the caller just said. Most of the text, most of the comments on our YouTube chat are all like, Zack Bond's got to be a priority. Well, interestingly, Jeff McClain, who joins the morning show quite often, does a great job covering the Eagles for the Inquirer, he did his stay or go, where he puts what he predicts, whether they're going to stay or whether they're going to go. And I don't think it's going to make a lot of fans happy. Jeff McClain has Zack Bond leaving the Philadelphia Eagles, and he clarified it on his Twitter about 13 minutes ago. I could be wrong. I have to do more reporting, but my initial instinct was that they won't want to pay what he can get on the open market. So I want to hear from you on that. As much as we trust Howie Roseman, as great of a job as Howie Roseman did in building this Super Bowl team and that defense, how angry would you be if Jeff McClain is correct and they let Zack Bond go out there and sign a free agent deal with another team? Because I will lose my mind. They did this after Super Bowl 57. They let TJ Edwards walk. He didn't sign a big deal in Chicago. They let him walk. They let Kazir White walk. Please, for once, you found a game changer at the linebacker position. Don't let him out the door. How mad would you be if McClain's right and they don't re-sign Zack Bond? You can get in 610-632-0975. We'll continue the Eagles conversation on the other side, as well as the news at noon, and Sean Rodman has to do it in front of the man who created the news at noon. No pressure, Sean.
Good luck.
No pressure.
No
All
pressure.
that coming up next.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Cam Jurgens has back surgery. I'm Sean Rodman, and this is your Fanatic Sports Update. Jurgens fought through a back injury in the NFC Championship game and Super Bowl and reportedly underwent surgery Tuesday to alleviate some of that nerve pain. Jurgens is expected to make a full recovery by July and in time for training camps in late July. A.J. Brown did some media rounds yesterday, and he highlighted his love for Kevin Patullo's promotion as the Eagles' new offensive coordinator.
I truly feel like it's a great hire. He already has been involved in almost everything. Him, Kellen, and Nick basically called the plays already. So it's a great hire.
The Sixers lose by 20 to the Celtics last night with the Sixers' big three all playing. Paul George did confirm post-game he has been receiving treatment on his finger. It was reported last week that he was receiving injections in his left pinky in order to play. This update is sponsored by Wendy's. Try a $3 Son of a Baconator today. Big news, bacon lovers. Wendy's Son of a Baconator is only $3 for a limited time. That's a whole lot of bacon for just $3. For bacon that just won't quit. Gotta be Wendy's. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the 76ers and Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Coming up on the 12 o'clock hour, we got the news at noon coming up, but with Sean Rodman, not Ray Dunn, and he's got to perform in front of Ray Dunn. Not easy, Sean. He's going to critique you when you're finished it.
That's okay.
But during the break, I pulled up Jeff McClain, who covers the Inquirer, covers the Eagles for the Inquirer.
That'd be a heck of a job covering the Inquirer for the Inquirer.
That would be really tough. But
we just started a job where we cover the Inquirer?
Yeah, I'll cover the Fanatic for the Fanatic. But
I do that, actually.
Yeah, you do. I pulled up his stay or go that he did. And, man, if he's correct, and we're spending a lot of time today talking about what we would do if we were Howie Roseman, now that we kind of know the coaching staff, we know who the OC is going to be, we can turn our focus to what's going to happen in free agency. if Jeff McClain's stay or go on the defensive side of the football is accurate, all the goodwill that I have with the Eagles, or the Eagles have with me, I should say right now after winning that Super Bowl, I'm going to be furious, Ray. Because Jeff McClain has Josh Sweat gone, Zack Bond gone, Isaiah Rodgers gone, Darius Slay gone. Now, I'm on board with them letting go of Slay. We talked about it. Frees up cap space. Let's get younger. But if you do that, I think you should really make a strong effort to try to re-sign Isaiah Rodgers, assuming he doesn't cost you a lot of money, assuming he doesn't get a big payday. I'd be shocked if Rodgers gets a big payday on the open market. But as much as I like Keely Ringo, and I think he deserves an opportunity, I think you need some depth there. You keep Rodgers. Because now if you sign Rodgers, you have Ringo, you have Coop, you got Quinyon Mitchell. I like that secondary. But whatever. I'm not angry about the Rodgers thing. Letting Zack Bond walk, Ray? And what McClain says is, he earned a hefty raise, but the Eagles don't traditionally pay linebackers. And how much was Fangio's scheme? Dude, I saw a guy in Zack Bond who finished as a Defensive Player of the Year finalist. That was more than just scheme. This kid can play. And if you watch the mic'd up of the Super Bowl, he's also a leader on that team. He's the leader on that defense. The guy's a playmaker. I do not want to see them make the mistake of the mistakes they made before, which is, look what happened after they go to the Super Bowl in 2022. You let T.J. Edwards and Kazir White walk, and you went into the season with Nakobe Dean. You tried signing Miles Jack in training camp. You end up making a trade for Shaq Leonard late in the season. The linebacker position was an absolute disaster. McClain's got to be wrong. There's no way Howie Roseman lets Bond out the door. They can't, Ray. Please tell me this wouldn't be a possibility.
Oh, it's certainly a possibility. I mean, look at the way they value the linebacker position. Are they more likely to invest in the trenches or to invest at linebacker?
He has them keeping Milton Williams instead.
This was our priority coming into this offseason. A lot of us, the fan base, everyone's like, Zack Bond, Zack Bond, Zack Bond. Does he care? Like, all right. Ultimately, would it be unpopular for a few weeks, for a few months, August, September? Howie is going to bank on his own knowledge of what he thinks can happen. And I said this earlier. Howie has been in the past sometimes drunk on the success of what he can find at linebacker. Yeah. He sees himself find someone, pick him up, they turn into something great. He thinks he can do it again. To his credit, it's happened a couple of times where it's happened again. But usually there's a miss or two in there in between. I don't want to miss going into next season on this linebacker position.
He also has Mekhi Becton. We haven't talked much about the offense. He also has Mekhi Becton leaving. Jeff McClain does. Now, in the YouTube chat, my man Dawood, appreciative of my yellow notepad you dropped off at Rally House. Using one right now.
Oh, it's Dawood that did that?
Yeah, Dawood, my man.
I love Dawood.
He says it's not about letting them walk, Bill. These guys are going to get offered life/generational changing money. I understand that. But Howie Roseman's got to figure out a way to keep Zack Bond. It's just, you can't bring in a guy like that, and you discovered him, like Ray said, and Vic Fangio turns him into what he turns him into, and then you let another team sign him. But we'll get back to that conversation because you're listening to WPEN and WPEN HD1 Burlington, Philadelphia, a Beasley Media Group station, broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studio, powering possibilities. Ray, did you want to say something about the Zack Bond thing before I turn it over to our man, Sean?
I would be on a long diatribe and the news at noon. You know, we want to keep honesty with the time of the news at noon, so let's let Sean Rodman do it.
All right, here we go. It's that time of day. What do we got, Sean?
There's a whole lot going on in this world. It's time to catch up. Here's the news at noon. 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
All right, no pressure, Sean, but Ray is going to grade you.
Well, now there's a little bit of pressure because he's acting like the voice guy now, too.
He's going to grade you. So what do we got?
I have my mic off in there all the time when this segment starts, and I'm just saying that to myself before the segment starts.
Maybe I should start doing that. But first up, we have A.J. Brown. He was making some rounds yesterday in the media, and he joined NFL Network's on The Insiders, and they asked him about his game-worn jersey that he displayed on a mannequin that his girlfriend posted on social media. And this is him highlighting that he's kind of washed it.
Let's talk about the mannequin because it is everywhere. Where'd you come up with the idea? Where'd you get the mannequin?
I literally went online and just tried to find a mannequin, and I couldn't really find my height or size. I'm not 6'2", but I'm okay with it. And my girl made fun of me a little bit about it. But I just thought about it, and I just wanted to do something different other than just put it in a frame in my jersey.
Mm-hmm. I've got to ask, are you going to wash it at any point? And not to be indelicate, but does it smell?
No, it doesn't smell. Our day against the Chiefs wasn't too difficult, so I wasn't really doing a lot, honestly. But I Febrezed it down.
Oh man, AJ. I wasn't expecting him to take a little backhanded slap at the Chiefs. Game wasn't too difficult. I didn't sweat that much.
It's a very cool line. However, please clean that thing. That's gross.
No, I don't think you do.
That's disgusting. No, you clean that thing.
You keep that thing sweaty.
Isn't it enough for you?
No, Febreze is not. Febreze is not enough. Clean that thing.
No, I think you keep it dirty on the mannequin for the rest of your life.
That mannequin's going to erode. It's going to be gross.
What if you wash it and you damage it in some way?
You know how many people work for the Philadelphia Eagles? If A.J. Brown wants that cleaned a specific way for the rest of his life so it's preserved, I think they can find somebody to go do that for him.
It is cool. And if you didn't see the picture, he has the game-worn jersey with a helmet. I think he's got the pants on that thing, too, doesn't he, on the mannequin?
He's got inner excellence in the pocket, too.
There's blood on the pant leg as well, unwashed.
I'll leave the pants can stay unwashed.
I think the pants are dirtier than the jersey.
It's just turf.
Getting swamp ass on that thing.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, you got to wash everything.
All right. What else? What else you got?
All right. Next, let's switch over to the NBA. Now, we can easily tell who the face of the NFL is with, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, and various others. But a friend of the show, Charles Barkley, had this to say about the new face of the league in the NBA.
I saw some guys on another network the other day talking about face of the league. Mm-hmm. And I was so annoyed just sitting around watching. And, Jerry started with Kevin Durant was talking about Wemby being the face of the league. First of all, you don't give anybody the face of the league. Am I right, Shaq? Shaq took being face of when Magic Johnson and Larry Bird came in, they're like, we're the new sheriffs in town. Shaq took it. Kobe took it. LeBron took it. Steph took it. But I get so annoyed when I hear these guys you don't give somebody something. That's one of the problems we got. These idiots won't play in the All-Star game. We've given them so much. They don't have no respect for the history. But you don't give anybody the face of the game. You take it.
I agree with Charles. Right? That's not something that you give. That's something that gets taken where fans just acknowledge that guy. Like when we just said, Sean started off saying we know who the face of the NFL is. You got Mahomes. You got Hurts. These guys took it. They earned it.
Right. And when people talk about the face of 97.5, the Fanatic, they say, Bill Colarulo, and I can't fight them on that one. You've come and taken the face of the Fanatic. It's crazy to see.
It is true. I mean, I don't want to disagree with Ray, but people have told me I have a great face for radio, so I assume that's what they mean by that, Ray.
I would say, though, the one thing about that, if there's one guy in the NBA right now that's going to grab it, it's just the market that's stopping him. It's Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the conversation from Court of Gold, him talking to Obama.
I haven't watched it yet. It's worth watching the Court of Gold.
I just saw the clip. I still have not sat down and watched the whole thing.
Is it on Netflix?
He's talking to a former president like he's a nobody. That man, if anyone's going to take the face of the league, I think it might be Ant, because I don't think he cares in the slightest.
Someone's saying Ant doesn't even want to be the face of the NBA. Is that you, Sean, who wrote that in?
Or is that Austin?
That was Austin, I think.
Yeah.
That's coming from Austin.
Yeah, but at some point, I remember the walk-in last year with Stephen A. to one of the games. Just listen to him talk and constantly listen to him in his convictions. I don't think he wants to be it, but whether he wants to be it or not, his personality might end up taking him to that spot.
And we're so focused on what Charles said, we missed the best line of the whole thing when he referred to the players about the All-Star game as these idiots. Don't even want to play in the All-Star game. Charles, don't hold back. But you know who weren't idiots? I think our next clip in the News at Noon, Ray.
Yeah, that's true. The people that were not idiots. Let's talk about the Four Nations face-off. And there was a great debate over the All-Star breaks, but here is Connor McDavid post-game on doing it for the fans.
Keep these guys in America after they beat you at the Bell Center. What's the most gratifying part about this?
Just to see the reaction, just to know what it means to us. I know it's just a quick tournament,
and it's not an Olympic gold medal or anything like that, but it means the world to our group. As you can see, everybody battled so hard all week. So, it was special.
Why does it mean so much?
Because it's best on best. It's 4 great countries going at it. Obviously here in Boston, going against an amazing American team, and just finding a way. It wasn't necessarily the prettiest, but just found a way.
You guys battled it out for over a week. Obviously, this goes to overtime. What's going through your mind during that overtime period?
Yeah, I was not very good all night. All was going through my mind is just keep going. I struggled all night, but these guys played great, and we just found a way.
There's so many people watching this that might not necessarily be hockey fans. What do you hope they learned about our sport?
Well, I hope they love it. It's a great game. It's a great sport. And I hope we put on a good show these last couple days and gain some fans. Ultimately, you can't ask for a better show than that.
So, Connor McDavid wins it in overtime for Canada last night. He's an absolute stud, man. I mean, he really is. He's an absolute stud. Future Hall of Famer. Guy's incredible. Edmonton, so lucky. You get Gretzky many years ago, and now you get Connor McDavid. Looks a lot like Ray Dunn, by the way. It's his doppelganger. For sure. But you watched last night, Ray? You watched the Four Nations?
I did. I watched the second period, then I watched the third period, and then they really tempted me on the whole hockey thing, and I watched overtime.
There you go. And the key to what he said in there, and Mike Wintrode on our YouTube chat hits the nail on the head. Best on best. He said this is the best on best. That's why it meant so much to all of these hockey players who participated in these Four Nations face-off, which is completely different than what you see in the NBA. Now, I told you we were done talking about the 76ers, but when we get back, only because this was an awesome, awesome rant by PK Subban, where he talked about the difference between hockey and the NBA. So you got to hear this. We'll continue our Eagles talk. I still want to hear from you. How angry would you be if the Eagles let Zack Bond walk? Because that's being predicted by a couple beat reporters now that maybe the money's going to be too much for the Eagles to pay a linebacker. So we want to hear from you on that, 610-632-0975. But I'm going to play this clip from PK Subban talking about the difference between hockey and the NBA. You got to hear this. We'll be right back.
Tyrone Johnson, Ricky Vitalico.
this Joel Embiid's anthem? First you get hurt, then you feel sorry. Talking about Joel?
Come on, man. I told you, I'm done for the day.
Trying to get Ray all worked up.
I'm done for the day.
No, we're done. We're done Sixers today because we want to go into the weekend on a high note. We're spending some time pretending to be Howie Roseman, which would be my dream job if I wasn't sitting here next to Ray Dunn.
Hey, you said Fantasy Friday. I had no idea what I was walking into.
Yeah, Fantasy Friday.
I was like, Fantasy Friday?
Fantasy Friday.
Got planned for tomorrow.
Yeah,
Don't tell me about what you're doing off the air.
Pretending to be Howie Roseman and what we would do with the offseason. So the text board's been humming. We got a bunch on the YouTube chat about what we would do with regard to this free agent period with the Eagles because they got a lot of players on both sides of the football. So we'll get back to that in a second. But last night was the championship game of what was a massive success for NHL and the sport of hockey with their Four Nations face-off. It was absolutely tremendous. The viewership was through the roof. And I think people who aren't necessarily hockey fans were able to see the way hockey players approach the game because they do approach the game differently than really any other sport. It's crazy. If you've watched playoff hockey, you see how these guys elevate their game and the pride in which they play with. And I want to play this clip for you. Now, I'll tell you, it's a little long. It's a little under 2 minutes long, but I think you got to hear most of it because it was so damn good. PK Subban, who played in the National Hockey League for many years, he went on ESPN, and he talked about the difference between hockey and the NBA. Because if anyone watched last night's Four Nation Championship and made the mistake of tuning into the NBA All-Star Game last weekend, you know exactly what PK Subban's talking about. So bear with me. It's a little under 2 minutes, but you got to hear this.
You can step on an NBA floor and go through the emotions. You can't do that in hockey. You can't. The culture of our sport, you have to play it with passion. You have to be willing to fight. You have to be willing to leave it on the ice. That's what fans are investing in. So for us, when we charge $1,500 for a ticket to come to fans know what they're getting. Cale Makar, the best defenseman in the world, wasn't in the lineup for this game. This was the most viewed game that we've had in years. And you see it, it's because it's not just based on the skill and talent. It's based on the pride, honor, playing for the guy next to you. I got a question for the NBA players. What the hell are you playing for? What are you playing for? It's not about the money. You make all the money. What, you're injured? Well, there's a difference between being hurt and injured. Are you hurt or are you injured? There's a difference. In hockey, we play hurt. We play injured. That is the culture of the sport. It's always been that way. So you want to talk about the business, the CBA, fans get all of that. But what do fans resonate with? They resonate with what's real. You got to fight sometimes for your country. You got to compete. You got to go out there and leave it on the ice because those people are paying the price of admission. So fans know whether our stars are on the ice or not, they're getting their money's worth. The NBA has that issue that they got to work on. You got to create a better culture for your players. It starts with the leaders. This issue, there was no issue when Jordan was around. There was no issue when Kobe was around. There's no issue when Sidney Crosby's around. There's no issue when Wayne Gretzky was around because those are true leaders.
Man, so I thought that PK is spot on there. And he's talking about more than just the All-Star game. Like, he's talking about something that we get frustrated with here. I'm breaking my own rule that we weren't talking Sixers anymore. But things that we get frustrated with here about players not playing every night, players taking nights off. That does not happen in the NHL. He's right. The culture of the sport, they play with pride. They play with honor. They play for the guy next to him. He is spot on, and you don't have that. And when he says this type of stuff didn't really go on with Jordan and Kobe, he's not wrong. So there is a culture problem in the NBA, right?
Yeah. I mean, that to me, all right, the money's gotten to the point it's all guaranteed. It's a wildly high money, and the conversation, the discourse around players in the NBA is about, well, how many rings do you have? It's not about how many postseason wins do you have. It's not about what you've done in the regular season. I mean, Joel Embiid could have been MVP 2 of those 3 years, if not, all 3 with Jokic. And the conversation is going to be, you haven't got out of the second round. So players have already devalued the regular season because the value that we place on the regular season's changed.
Yeah, but you say they devalued it, and you're right. You're not wrong, as I like to say. but fans are still paying for the regular season. Like that's what PK's kind of saying too. When fans show up to a hockey game, they know when they pay their hard-earned money to come to a hockey game that they're going to get a product on the ice of guys giving it their all. You don't get that in the NBA. And it's not fair to the fan base.
I'll be honest, I've gone to the Wells Fargo Center a number of times this year. One of the times was for the home opener for the Flyers. They got blanked. It was an ugly brand of hockey. I didn't enjoy it. I still paid for it. That's what you risk when you show up. Like, I understand it's brutal. I'm living through it as a season ticket holder with the Sixers. That the product
but not knowing when he talks about playing hurt, playing injured, not knowing if your guys are going to play.
Yeah, it stinks. But at this point, I think it's kind of baked into the risk of buying the tickets. This is the culture. This is not new to the NBA. This is not new. It's been made to the extreme this year in Philadelphia specifically, which is why I understand the frustrations out there. I'm just as frustrated as anyone. But this has been baked into the culture of the NBA. And like, well, when Jordan was there, it was different. Go look at how much Jordan made the salary in his career. Some of these guys are getting Supermax deals where 1 year is pretty much that. Like, it's changed.
Crazy.
It's a whole different dynamic, and the economic health of the game is in a different place where, like, you want these guys to play for pride. The Four Nations face-off has shown you when you play for pride, you get a good product out of there. But a lot of guys will look at what's the pride of putting up 40 on a Wednesday night in February. I could do that. Is anyone going to give me credit? Or, I remember last year, Embiid dropped 70 against the Spurs, and I was on this program. Andrew Salciunas was the host. We were getting calls the next day. Well, what does it matter?
No, you're right. People have that mentality.
There's a two-sided apathy. There's been an apathy for the consumer for the regular season. Now you're still going, and you should get the payoff of your hard-earned money. But certainly on the other side with the players, they've made a lot of money now, and now they've become apathetic to those games because if we're talking legacy with them, those games, nobody will ever count those for those games. Not nobody, but there's a lot of people that will discount those games. It's not worth it.
And I am curious, not making it an NBA versus NHL debate. I am curious, and hit us up on the text line. If you were someone who wasn't really a hockey person, like me and Mike talk about this, Mike says he has a hard time getting into hockey again. I know there's a lot of people. Hockey is not even close to being on par with the other three major sports. I love hockey. I have season tickets to the Flyers. But I know there are people out there who are not hockey people, and I'm curious. Hit us up on the text line. Did this Four Nations face-off do anything for you? Are you now going to say, you know what, maybe I am going to check out hockey, or is it right back to status quo for you? Because we keep saying, oh, what a great thing for hockey that this was, but is it actually going to grow the game? So I want to hear from you on the text line on that, 610-632-0975. And when we get back, we're going to put our Howie Roseman caps back on. We'll jump back into not only the defensive free agents, but we haven't talked much about some of the offensive free agents. Everybody knows about Mekhi Becton along that offensive line. But there is another one that may surprise you that I think the Philadelphia Eagles should prioritize. We'll talk about that coming up next.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Cam Jurgens has back surgery. I'm Sean Rodman, and this is your Fanatic Sports Update. Jurgens fought through a back injury in the NFC Championship game and Super Bowl and reportedly underwent surgery on Tuesday to alleviate some nerve pain. Jurgens is expected to make a full recovery by July, which is in time for the start of training camp. A.J. Brown did some media rounds yesterday, and he highlighted his love for Kevin Patula's promotion as the Eagles' new offensive coordinator.
I truly feel like it's a great hire. He already has been involved in almost everything. Him, Kellen, and Nick basically called the plays already. So it's a great hire.
The Sixers lost by 20 to the Celtics last night with the Sixers' big three all playing. Paul George confirmed post-game he has been receiving treatment on his left pinky finger. It was reported last week that he was receiving injections in his finger in order to play. This update is sponsored by the Truiza Championship at Philadelphia Cricket Club. The PGA's Truiza Championship will be played at Philadelphia Cricket Club in early May. Watch top tour players and enjoy a variety of fan activities. Tickets on sale at TruizaChampionship.com. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the 76ers and Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Ricky Vitalico.
Friday, everybody. Welcome back in. No Mikey missed today, but you still got Bill Colarulo and Ray Dunn moving from behind the glass into the studio.
Or always behind some version of glass.
Yeah, but now you and I get to actually see each other. I could reach out and touch you, Ray.
Please stay away from me.
And people, I don't know if we've done anything to diffuse the Ray Dunn hates Bill narrative. But we'll see if we can accomplish that by the end
I actually feel like being behind this glass is a little bit more problematic for me. It's very distracting. There's always people walking around. I feel like I'm like an exhibit.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. And you don't know, in your chair, you don't even know who's behind you.
Right. Inside there, it's beautiful. I pretty much hide behind the screens.
I can't see anybody. It's nice.
Well, no, you've got the chair up like 2 feet off the ground.
Well,
and that's not a short joke. That's not a short joke. I can see most of your face, which usually I have the chair low enough where you can't really see anything but my eyes. And I know that you two now are starting to learn how to read my eyes. You and Mike, that is, learn to read my eyes and my reaction to things you guys say.
Yeah, because I usually just see you over the mic. But a lot's been on the table today. And, in fact, we talk about people walking around. We just ran into Ricky Batalico out there. He's getting ready. He's hosting with Amy Fadul today. So Amy Fadul will be in for the full best show ever from 2 to 6 coming up next. So I know they're going to do a little Sixers talk if you need a Sixers fix. And obviously the Eagles. But we're going to get back to the Eagles and their free agency decisions and some of the things that Ray and I would do. But before the break, we were talking about the Four Nations face-off that hockey just finished. And it was a massive success. But I asked the question and said, text in, if you weren't a hockey person before, did this do anything for you? Like, are you now going to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm going to pay attention? Because as exciting as this was, and I even said last night this was a huge win for hockey, I feel like there are people, if you weren't a hockey fan before, you're probably not really going to be a hockey fan now. You enjoyed the Four Nations, but it's not like you're going to turn in Saturday morning to watch the Capitals play the Penguins. And I think we got some texts on this, Sean.
Yeah, we have a couple texts on this. First up, Frank in Philly says, I'm 39. I played hockey my whole life. I stopped watching it like 10 years ago. Last weekend's hockey and last night, that was amazing. Country versus country going forward. These guys actually put it on for their countries, and the game itself was electric. Then, second up, we have another person said, I loved watching the Four Nations game because the U.S. was playing. In no way does it make me want to watch NHL hockey. It was all about the national pride. If it was Finland against Canada in the final, I would not have watched.
Yeah, you see, that's my fear. I think a lot of people probably feel that way, Ray, where if you weren't a hockey fan before, you enjoyed it. You enjoyed the nations and the competition. You'll probably tune into the Winter Olympics next year to watch that. But as far as NHL hockey, I'm not sure if this did help grow the game.
Yeah, with all due respect to our partners, which I'm looking forward to John Kincade and Kevin Cooney being out at the Flyers Charity Carnival coming on Sunday. That's 12 to 3. You can tune in right here on 97.5 The Fanatic. Yeah, it's a little bit different level where I'm watching Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid go back and forth. It's just like my local market right now, teams go, 55 points right now? Is bleak. Like that, I'm not watching the same level of that back and forth. Now, if I could figure out a way where I'm going to watch a ton of Oilers games, now you're talking to me about something. But like the general NHL product isn't exactly saved by this. Playoff hockey is tremendous,
It is tremendous.
The first good playoff hockey game, your entire timeline. Oh, playoff hockey! This is amazing. We know playoff hockey's fun. I bet you're a guy that does that. You see a good playoff hockey, you just tweet out all caps, playoff hockey.
Playoff hockey, different
unreal.
Level. It really
it's
is.
It's absurd.
They elevate it to a different level in the playoffs. Yeah. They put it all on the line. But yeah, my fear is this isn't really going to help the NHL.
I enjoyed watching it last night.
We will see.
They probably outdid the NBA last night. Good for them.
They definitely outdid the NBA last night. I think most Sixers fans turned off that
locally, yes,
disaster.
They did that. Locally, they did
to watch that. But we need to get the Flyers fans back. The Flyers got to be better. But all right, let's switch gears back to the Philadelphia Eagles because that was our main topic today. Just looking at all these free agents because a lot of the discussion leading into this week was who are they going to hire as their new offensive coordinator. That's been answered. It's Kevin Patullo. You've heard Sean Rodman play some clips. A.J. Brown seems to be happy with that decision, which is a good thing. But now we have to turn our focus to the free agents. And I threw out the question, what would you do on the defensive side of the football? We'll get back to that. We got a bunch of texts. But I want to jump over to the other side of the ball. Because In addition to CBS putting out their list of the top 25 best defensive free agents, where the Eagles had all of the top 3, they also put out a list of their top 25 offensive free agents. And maybe a surprise, maybe not, Mekhi Becton makes the list, coming in at number 14. So before I ask you about Mekhi Becton, I want to talk about maybe a lesser desirable free agent that I think the Eagles should prioritize signing, Ray.
Oh, boy.
And that's Kenny Gainwell. Now, I don't know if you thought I was going to go there or not.
That's exactly where I thought you were going.
All right, so Kenny Gainwell is also a free agent. You look at the offense, they got Mekhi Becton, Kenny Gainwell, and then really, I don't need them to keep any of the other guys. Fred Johnson, Paris Campbell, C.J. Uzama, Jack Driscoll, Nick Gates, Britton Covey maybe, and LaRaven Clark. Outside of that, no. But Kenny Gainwell, Mekhi Becton. Let's talk about Kenny G, Ray. Because right now you look at that running back room. Saquon Barkley, magical season. Healthy season. I don't think you go into next season assuming that Saquon Barkley is going to play all 17 games after the workload that you just saw him have this season. Now, I know you have Will Shipley. I like Will Shipley. I think you got to bring Kenny Gainwell back. I don't think he would cost you a lot of money. But if I'm Howie Roseman, that's actually a priority of mine, re-signing Kenny G.
I don't hate it. I don't hate that he's a priority. I think what he does in terms of picking up run blitzes, obviously what it gives you in terms of a change of pace running back, I like it. I like prioritizing him to an extent. I'm curious to see what this offseason does for running backs because I want to see just how smart the National Football League is.
I just can't imagine, even if running backs get a lot of money again, because you're right, how smart the NFL is, you would think after the Ravens paid Derrick Henry and the Eagles paid Saquon Barkley, and you saw the level of success that these guys had for their teams, that a lot of people are going to come out and want to pay running backs. But Kenny Gainwell's not that type of running back. He's not that elite. But what he is, he's extremely reliable. He's been here for 4 seasons. We know Nick Sirianni loves him. We know he fits the culture here. And when he's been asked to make a play, he's made it, man. I mean, Kenny Gainwell has made big plays when he had to.
All right, name your price.
I don't know. You know, you're right, because I don't know what the market's going to be. But if you can get him on like a 2-year deal, you're not breaking the bank, why not bring him back?
What's breaking the bank, though?
Well, you're not paying him anywhere near like the top echelon. So let's look. So running backs right now, let's see, what would you compare him to?
If he commanded $5 million.
A year.
A year.
Well, I'm looking now. Like you got a guy like Gus Edwards for the Chargers gets 3.2 a year. So you're probably going to, like Austin Eckler in Washington last year only made 4.2 a year.
Yeah, okay.
So
well,
you're probably.
You remember that video of Austin Eckler running? Not this past season, the year before. And it looked like he was just decelerating the entire time he was moving. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that video of Eckler moving. Sean Robin, you remember that video?
I remember the video.
Yeah. I figured you were online enough to get that. That video, like, cost him probably $1 million. Kenny Gainwell, you're getting a guy that
I don't think anyone's going to go out of their way, though, to pay Kenny.
I'm not saying they're going out of their way. They're paying $4 or $5 million.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would even give him that.
You know,
maybe a 2-year, $5 million
you know what?
deal.
You lost the sandwich yesterday.
I did lose a sandwich yesterday.
I'm
what an
willing
idiot I am.
to wager a sandwich on his salary.
All right. Annual? Per year.
Per year.
It'll be, you're saying 5?
Greater than 4.
All right, I'll take the under.
Okay.
Mark that down, Sean.
I got it. Don't
when
worry.
Kenny Gainwell signs, it will be under $4 million a year. I'm double or nothing on the sandwich now.
No, not double or nothing. You don't owe me a sandwich. You owe Mike a sandwich.
Yeah, but you're right. I owe Mike a sandwich. But if I
mean, if you want to buy me a sandwich, I'm fine with that.
If Gainwell's contract is less than $4 million a year, you're going to buy Mike the sandwich, and now I'm even. But if not, I owe both of you idiots a sandwich.
Ooh, I don't know. That's tough though, because you got to think about the level of sandwich in which I would want versus the level of sandwich that Mike would want. Mike's definitely going for an upper echelon sandwich.
Yeah, he's going with the
he's
the
got
foo-foo.
This is like a $25 sandwich. Me, I'm happy with like an $11 sandwich.
All right, we'll figure it out.
I mean, I would take probably a Wawa hoagie I would during Hoagie Fest too. I would really knock down that price for you.
We'll figure that out.
Might be less single dollars for the price of my sandwich than what Kenny Gainwell gets in free agency in millions of dollars.
But looking at Jeff McClain's stay or go again that he tweeted out today for the Inquirer, he's got Gainwell leaving. And then the big one, the big free agent on the offensive side of the football, because they're pretty stacked for next year.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about a backup running back.
A backup running back and a starting right guard.
Luxury problems.
He's got Mekhi Becton leaving as well. He says another of Jeff Stoutland's reclamation success stories. He now has positional versatility on his free agent resume. See, it's that position versatility that makes him a priority for me to keep here.
I was going to ask, do you think that he's the long-term right tackle?
Possibly, but it gives you at least that flexibility. You bring Becton back. You keep your offensive line intact. You got all of your weapons on offense. You got your quarterback again. You run it back. I don't think you let Becton out of your door. So if I'm Howie Roseman, if we're keeping score at home, I prioritize, of all the free agents, Mekhi Becton, Zack Bond, Milton Williams. If they can get those three guys back, and then I would say on the second tier, Isaiah Rodgers, Kenny G, those are the 5 free agents that I want to see them keep. Move on from Darius Slay. Move on from James Bradbury. Move on from Avonte Maddox, who's a free agent, so you don't have to worry about cutting him. He's just not getting re-signed. And you let Josh Sweat sign somewhere else because he's going to be too much money.
I have a Becton belief that we can get to after the break.
All right, so Ray's got an opinion about Mekhi Becton. We'll get to that on the other side. We'll get back to the text. There's a ton of them about the Philadelphia Eagles. And there are some people who want to weigh in on this whole NBA versus NHL debate that PK Subban sparked with that rant. So we'll continue that conversation as well. We got you all the way up until 2 o'clock, so you're going to want to keep it right here.
The Philadelphia
Two here on 97.5 The Fanatic. You got Bill Colarulo and Ray Dunn today. Mikey Miss has the day off. A lot of people were off today. Salciunas was off in the morning. Tyrone's off this afternoon. Mikey Miss off today.
Didn't you hear it?
Super Bowl hangover week, man.
No, it's National Lead Host Day. They'll take off.
Wait, you're right. It's the lead host of every show.
Yeah. It's National Lead Host Day.
Did you just make that up, or is it something?
No, it's something. Do you not have your Beasley calendar?
I do not have my Beasley calendar.
Are you serious? You didn't know about this?
I did not. But you know what I do know about? Our 12 o'clock sponsor. Because this 12 o'clock hour is brought to you by Service First HVAC, offering 0% financing for 48 months, rebates and tax credits up to $4,300 when purchasing a heating and cooling system. Learn more at servicefirsthvac.com.
Yeah, you work your entire career so that Beasley gives you an extra holiday as a lead host. That's what today is.
Yeah, I think it's a lie. I think you're making this up.
Robin, you got this email, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Did you not get Mike anything for it?
Okay, moving
Besides
on.
the sandwich.
You didn't get Mike. You didn't even get Mike the sandwich.
I don't know if you're pulling a bit on me or not. I'm pretty sure it's a bit.
I mean, this is a real thing.
No, I'm pretty sure it's a bit because I know
it's a real thing.
I know
No.
Chunas took the day off to take care of his son.
They're just excuses.
Talked to him last night.
No. Why do you think he had the ability to do that? That's why Christie scheduled the trip at that time.
Oh, okay.
They just plan ahead.
Well, the 1 o'clock hour will be lead host hour, and I'll get out of here. You and Rodman can finish the show.
All right. Works for me.
So-
610-632.
Yeah.
We're opening up the phone lines. We're going to talk a lot about college basketball.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the phone lines, the text line's been humming because we spent a lot of this show talking about the Eagles free agency and what they should do because CBS Sports ranked the top 25 defensive free agents. Eagles had number 1, 2, and 3 with Sweat, Bond, and Williams in that order. Now, even though CBS has Sweat ranked as the number 1 free agent, I'd actually put him number 3 on my list. I think the priority is Zack Bond with a close second. Let me tell you, real close. Like I'm almost 1 and 1A, Zack Bond, Milton Williams. I think Milton Williams is very important to this defense going forward. But Jeff McClain put out he thinks Zack Bond's gone. He has them signing Milton Williams, but he's got Zack Bond gone. So I asked the question earlier for the text board, how angry would you be if Howie Roseman, even though he's got all this goodwill right now, stayed true to his I don't pay linebacker mentality and let Zack Bond walk? What do we got on the text line, Sean?
Well, first off, I just want to say to some texters that I see your texts. If you're going to send the same text over and again, I know Ray has a lot of power with the text board. I like to hold a lot of power sometimes too, so I'm not going to name
If you're in line for the text line, stay in line. Don't worry. We're going to get to it.
I'm not going to name any names.
We get a ton of texts here, which we appreciate fully. I love how active the text board is, but sometimes it's hard to get to all of them. All right, but give me some good ones on Zack Bond.
All right. First up, we have no name from this person, but I wouldn't be mad if Bond was not brought back. It's not my money to spend or make. Let him get paid here or elsewhere. He earned it. Thank you for the season you gave.
I agree with the texter in Zack Bond deserves to get paid, and I want him to get paid. But I want Jeffrey Lurie to be the one signing the check that pays the man. I do not want to see Zack Bond go elsewhere and get paid. You saw, first of all, when Vic Fangio came in the offseason and he gave his introductory press conference, the first question he was asked is, what makes your defense good? His answer, good players. Well, you have a very good player at the linebacker position. I don't want to do this up and down every single season at the linebacker position. You saw how good the team can be when you get good linebacker play. You saw it in 2022. You saw it again this season. And what happened in between? You had terrible linebacker play, and there's no mistake that you had a 30th ranked defense. So I agree. I'm not asking Zack Bond to take a pay cut. I want Zack Bond to get paid. I just want it to be the Philadelphia Eagles that pay him. Please tell me there are people on the text board that agree with me and Ray that don't want to see this guy leave.
Yes, Norm from Mayfair says Carter and Bond or the defense nucleus. Bond must stay. That's it.
They are. Now, interestingly, as we talk about Zack Bond getting a contract, the Kobe Dean is now eligible as well for a contract. Because if you look, anyone who was drafted in 2022 would now be eligible for new deals. So you got Nakobe Dean eligible, you got Cam Jurgens eligible, and Jordan Davis is eligible for that fifth-year option to be exercised because he's a first-round draft pick. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made, but if I'm Howie, let's keep the linebacker crew together. You got Bond, you got Dean, you got a nice Jeremiah Trotter sitting behind him. We really don't know what we have in him. Like McLean, I keep going back to this just because it's in front of me. He has them letting Bond walk, but keeping Aaron Burks. Now, as great as Aaron Burks played in the Super Bowl, he's not Zack Bond.
No.
So he could fill in when Dean got hurt. And again, love Nakobe Dean. And I feel bad saying it. Not sure you can rely on the guy from a health perspective.
Well, certainly to start next season, you can't.
Well, and we've seen every year the guy's gotten hurt. He got hurt last year with the foot twice. Then he had the injury this year. And it's not his fault necessarily, but you're right. And we also don't know how healthy he's going to be to start next season. So I think that makes Zack Bond even more of a priority, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Bond should be a priority point blank. We can't keep doing this charade with linebackers. I can't keep doing it. We know he's proven to play in this system. He's been good in this system. I do want to circle back real quick. You said those that left college in 2022 are due for a new deal?
They're eligible.
Eligible for a contract. Eligible for a deal.
Why, you left college in 2022?
I think I got to go meet with corporate. All right. I just want to make sure we're all up for new deals. Got it.
And also, before the break, we were talking about another free agent, Mekhi Becton, and you said you had a Becton point you wanted to make because I said I would make him a priority as well. What was your point about Becton?
You guys should stick around for this one. It's a great one.
You're teasing it again.
Yeah.
It's a double tease. It's better be worth it, Sean.
Yeah.
It better be.
It's better not be anticlimactic when
Yeah,
we
it
come
wouldn't
up
be
on
the first time I teased and then disappointed.
That would be a violation.
Yeah. Yeah, anyone out there that has been teased and disappointed by Ray, 610.
No. They're not listening, please. They've got the station's number blocked, too.
Oh, man. They got the station's number blocked. All right, well, we're going to continue this conversation. The text board's been humming on this. We'll talk more about the defensive side of the football. I just threw out there that Jordan Davis is eligible for that fifth-year option to be exercised. And I'm curious what people's opinion is about that. I want to talk about a little bit of Jordan Davis in the middle of that defense coming up next as well. We'll be right back.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Cam Jurgens has back surgery. I'm Sean Rodman, and this is your Fanatic Sports Update. Jurgens fought through a back injury in the NFC Championship game and Super Bowl. Reportedly underwent surgery on Tuesday to alleviate a nerve pain in his back. Jurgens is expected to make a full recovery by July in time for the start of training camp. A.J. Brown did some media rounds yesterday, and he highlighted his love for Kevin Patullo's promotion as the Eagles' new offensive coordinator.
I truly feel like it's a great hire. He already has been involved in almost everything. Him, Kellen, and Nick basically called the plays already. So it's a great hire.
The Sixers lost by 20 to the Celtics last night, with the Sixers' big three all playing. Paul George confirmed post-game he has been receiving treatment on his left pinky finger. It was reported last week that he was receiving injections in his finger in order to play. This update is sponsored by Wendy's. Try a $3 Son of a Baconator today. Big news, bacon lovers. Wendy's Son of a Baconator is only $3 for a limited time. That's a whole lot of bacon for just $3. For bacon that just won't quit, gotta be Wendy's. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the 76ers and Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
up on the 1 o'clock hour here on Friday. It's cold, but at least it's a happy Friday because we are still Super Bowl champions in the city of Philadelphia. But the best part about our city is a majority of you out there, I think, are like me and Ray, where as much as you're still basking in the championship glow, drunk, as Ray would just said, not me.
I'm not on the board.
Yeah, you're looking forward and saying, well, what can they do this offseason to keep things going? How do they keep this level of success going? And I keep hearing in Howie we trust, which I agree. What a season Howie Roseman had. But he's got some tough decisions to make this offseason. This is what comes with success. A lot of your players overperform, and they're coming on the end of their contract. You're going to have to make some tough decisions. We know Josh Sweat's a free agent. We know Zack Bond's a free agent. Milton Williams is a free agent. And on offense, Mekhi Becton, who came here on a one-year prove-it deal as a tackle and turned into a pretty damn good right guard, is a free agent. I want to see the Eagles keep Mekhi Becton. I don't want to necessarily turn things over to Tyler Steen just yet. Not that Tyler Steen didn't perform well in spots. But to ask him to do it for 17 games, I'm not sure if I believe in him yet. Now, Jeff Stoutland may, and if Stoutland does, then maybe you do it. But what I like about Becton is he has the potential and the versatility coming into the league as a tackle where maybe he takes over for Lane Johnson one day at right tackle. But, Ray, you said you have something interesting on Mekhi.
That is the only reason you give him the extension.
Is the versatility.
No, is the belief that he takes over for Lane Johnson. I firmly believe between Cam Jurgens and Lane Johnson, you could find a productive right guard that does not hurt and hamper this offensive line going forward. With the talent you have on this offensive line at this point, I believe you can find someone to plug into that spot. The only way that I am spending premium dollar to make sure Mekhi Becton is here for the long haul is if there is a belief, and really just a guarantee that Stoutland sticks around, but a belief that Becton will be able to kick outside and be the right tackle of the future post Lane Johnson. That's the reason I give him a contract extension. Thank you for a great season. I'm happy that you were a reclamation project here in Philadelphia. You found your footing. You know, the video of him, after the Super Bowl sitting on the ground crying, it's incredible. Love all that. Sentimentalities are fantastic. But the only way that I say, yeah, throw that money at him is if he's going to be able to kick out to the right tackle and replace Lane Johnson. Otherwise, I'm good.
How many years do you think we have left of Lane? You think he's playing for another 2?
I'll be honest with you. I kind of thought he was going to be like, this was sweet. Thanks, guys.
Well, because he said before the Super Bowl even happened, this wasn't going to be his last year.
I was surprised when he said that. I kind of thought if he was going to leave it open before the Super Bowl and then after the Super Bowl he was going to say peace. I mean, it has to be a year or 2.
All right, he's 34 right now. He'll be 35 in May. Yeah, I mean, this could arguably be his last season. So the Eagles have to start planning. I mean, we said that with Jason Kelce all those years. They drafted...
We've been saying it with Lane Johnson for the last couple of years.
We have, but with Kelce, they drafted Landon Dickerson, we thought, to be Kelce's replacement. They drafted Cam Jurgens to be Kelce's replacement. And Kelce ended up staying a lot longer than anyone thought. That's why Jurgens played right guard last year. So maybe you're not wrong about the right guard position being able to find anyone because Jurgens, although he wasn't as good at guard as he is at center, serviceable last year. Sayamala obviously was very good 2 years ago. Becton steps in, he's good. So maybe you don't overpay for a Becton, right? Maybe you are convincing me unless he has the versatility that you believe he could slide outside and be your right tackle. But either way, they're going to need some depth. I think they're probably going to have to draft an offensive lineman at some point early, whether it's first or second round. See, the problem is it's going to be tough to find the guy that takes over for Lane Johnson at number 32 in the draft. Like, tackles usually go a lot higher than that unless you find the guy who's
last
raw.
Year, what was it? Guyton was the... Who was the guy at Oklahoma last year?
Tyler Guyton.
Tyler Guyton was the one that Lane Johnson had scouted. There was all that lead up to it of are they going to do this? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do this? They didn't. Thank goodness. It worked out for the Eagles.
And Guyton did go 29th. So, I mean, you look at a guy like that, he went 29th overall. Maybe they could get a tackle
But
at 32, but that's not going to help you this year necessarily.
And here's what I'm saying: you're in this championship contending window, and I know everyone wants to think long term. I want to enjoy this for the next 5. I want another Super Bowl. I want another Super Bowl immediately. I want things to pay off now. Okay. And when I look at that regard, we just spent 3 hours, and I know you're going to spend next 15 seconds telling us who we're listening to in a second, so I will make this brief. We just spent 3 hours talking about all the question marks really defensively, and we came to Kenny Gainwell and Mekhi Becton on the offense.
Not many questions.
There's a lot more resources I want to contribute to keep that defense at number 1 than I am about being concerned about losing one offensive starter. And that's part of what goes in this Becton conversation. I'm going to put those resources into this if I could believe he ends up kicking out to right tackle in the long term post Lane Johnson.
It's a good point, Ray. And you're listening to it on WPEN and WPEN HD1 Burlington, Philadelphia, a Beasley Media Group station, broadcasting live from the Comcast Business Studios, powering possibilities. But, Ray, you're making a good point, because if they had to pay a Mekhi Becton, and if that resulted in them being unable to pay Zack Bond and Milton Williams, I'm prioritizing Bond and Williams in that situation. You would prioritize Bond and Sweat in that situation. But I think if we are listing them, because we've been doing it kind of offensively, defensively, if we're just looking at all of the free agents, where would Becton fall on your list if it was in priority? I think we both agree. Number 1, Zack Bond, right?
Yeah.
My number 2 is Milton Williams. Your number 2 is Josh Sweat.
Yeah.
Number 3 for me would be Becton over Sweat.
And to be clear, I have Williams 3, and I called him the most important million in Pennsylvania history.
That's true. So, but you would have Milton 3, Becton 4.
Yes, I'm trying to think defensively how I break things down.
But you would sign your 3 defensive players. You would prioritize your 3 defensive players over Becton. I'm prioritizing 2 defensive players and then Becton.
Wow, man. Why do you hate Josh Sweat, huh? 610. Let's jump into this.
Because I know what Josh Sweat is going to require on the open market. Look, he took the pay cut last year. They restructured his deal. They basically made it a 1-year deal so he could hit free agency. I just think what Josh Sweat is going to cost you, I don't think he's worth the money. As great as he played in the Super Bowl, and I'm not a Josh Sweat hater, I just don't think he's going to be worth what another team's going to overpay him.
Let's be clear. That was parody. He doesn't hate him. Sorry. I know you're upset about being blocked by Darius Slay. I don't want to do that to you for Josh Sweat this time around, too. Looking at, if we break out priority here, and I may make this a little bigger picture, Bond for me, and then ensuring you have something coming off the edge. Ensuring your defensive edge, whether it be depth, whether it be top-level talent, that's priority 2 for me. Because you hear how much I want Myles Garrett. I'm all in on the Myles Garrett train here. I'm all in on trying to bring Josh Sweat back. I understand one of those is logical. One of those is only what you're going to get. I can't ask for both those things. I could ask for both those things and expect only one of them. But that edge rusher is the second priority for me beyond Bond, because I look at how bare the cupboard's going to be there, and I want them to address that. And I also feel like you can, in this draft, find someone on the defensive interior as compared to Milton Williams.
And I understand the point being because you can't trust Huff, right? I mean, you don't know what you got in Bryce Huff. If Bryce Huff, that was the only mistake Howie Roseman made, but if Bryce Huff could play.
Well, and Devin White.
Well, Devin White, I was never that high on him, and that was only a 1-year deal. But
I heard Eagles chants on 2nd Street in Northern Liberties.
When they signed Devin White? No. I actually.
I'm dead serious. That's how down bad some people were for a linebacker.
When they signed Devin White, I tried to calm people down. I was not that excited about it. But that wasn't as big of a risk. It was a 1-year deal. The Huff deal, would they sign him to 3 years? $50 million?
What's his dead cap hit this year? You told me a week ago. I forget.
If they tried to move on from Huff, let's say
20-something.
Pulling it up now. So if they tried to move on from Huff, let's say they were to cut him post June 1st, he would have a $20 million dead cap number. It would actually cost them more money to cut him. If they traded him with a post June 1st, they would save about $4.3 million on the cap. So, but you have to get someone to take on that number because his cap hit. What's his cap hit? His cap hit this year is 7.5. Then in 2026, 11.7. But then Howie built in what he loves to do, those void years. The cap hit in 2027 is $27.5 million.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's going to be a problem that comes down the line here.
But,
now, I will tell you, there is a former Jets edge rusher hitting the market this year. And would you be interested in that edge rusher coming to Philadelphia?
You talking about a guy who used to be here?
I might be.
Talking about Hassan Reddick?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, man. I actually feel bad for Reddick because he got terrible advice.
Horrible advice.
But he got terrible advice. I mean, if there's people out there who thinks that they would want to bring back Reddick, I mean, he was great here in 2022. But I'd like to hear from you. But I got a bone to pick with my man Brandon right now.
Oh.
So Brandon does a great job doing our social. He cuts clips and then he posts them to our Twitter and our Instagram and YouTube. But sometimes he does us dirty, Ray.
Oh.
So I went on.
Especially.
I went on for about 10 minutes explaining why I thought moving on from Darius Slay was the right decision. And I laid out why, from a financial perspective, it made sense. Because you're saving money on the cap this year, 4.3 this year, 17.8 million next year if you moved on from Darius Slay. But Brandon doesn't include that in the clip. He posts a 30-second clip of me, 25 seconds, and it just says, is it time to cut Darius Slay? And then it's me saying that the Eagles should cut Darius Slay and doesn't put in any of the reasons why from a financial perspective. So now I'm getting crushed on Twitter, Brandon.
That's right.
Now I'm getting crushed on Twitter. Yeah, I'm getting...
Absolutely not. No. Weird take on a guy who won a Super Bowl and had a great season. No, it isn't. Time to restructure. One of the greatest quarterbacks in Eagle history and a needed vet. Ungrateful ass fan base. No. Shut up. No. Well, if it's not the Eagles, Slay just publicly said he would go to Detroit. Actually, this guy seems to be agreeing.
Yeah, that guy's more with me.
Here's my favorite one.
What, the station?
It's time for your station to dissolve. That's it, folks. That's what put us over the edge. It was his Slay take. It's over.
Didn't you call him the face of the Fanatic earlier?
He did.
That's a good point.
But Brandon did me dirty here. The reason that I'm saying that you would move on from Darius Slay is contractual. There's a reason why they structured the contract the way they did. And as good as Slay is, and we even said, but this didn't make the clip, that he's a very underappreciated player in this town. Doing me dirty.
This all comes back to one thing. You're hurt that you're blocked.
Yeah, that's why I'm calling
You are
for
a
it.
scorned lover on this one, Bill Colarulo, and I see right through it.
Oh, my God. I'm still, the amount, I'm being ratioed, as they call it on Twitter.
You couldn't have sounded older saying that.
That's what they call it, don't they?
I'm being ratioed, as they call it.
It's okay. He can be saved by the break.
Yeah, I'm being ratioed. All right, well, let's talk about that more coming up next, because if they do move on from Darius Slay, which I think is inevitable, we toyed with this idea a little bit earlier in the show. What do they do in the secondary? And then a little bit of an unrelated Philadelphia topic, but big news coming out of New York. Monster news coming out of New York. Man, I'm shocked that this tradition is getting changed. I'll explain it on the other side.
Tyrone Johnson.
Nick Sirianni clearly had
Mikey misses off, so you got Bill and Ray with Sean Rodman behind the glass. So some big news coming out of New York. This always was weird to me that the Yankees even had this rule still in place. I'm surprised it took until 2025 for them to change it. But a statement from Yankees managing general partner Hal Steinbrenner. Yankees players will now be able to have well-groomed beards moving forward. This was always the craziest rule to me, that they could not have facial hair. What do you think, Ray?
Well, I'm a little disappointed. I went and trimmed up the beard yesterday. Tried to cut down the facial hair because I was going to start throwing bullpens to see if I could go latch on with the Yankees this year. I'm a little upset about that.
What do you think, though? Well-groomed. It's kind of a subjective analysis
It's been the stupidest thing for the longest time. Oh, you can't have facial hair. Oh. Stop it. They're baseball players. This has nothing to do with them performing on the field. This has always been the dumbest thing. You got to look a certain way. It's the dumbest rule that they could possibly enact. And the fact that now they're going to have someone assessing whether or not it's well-groomed beards is also asinine. It's 2025. And this statement they put out earlier today, which is also hilarious. And I already tweeted this out. So if you follow me on Twitter, I apologize. I'm repeating jokes here. But just imagine, because this statement says that the Steinbrenners actually went about calling Yankees, spanning generations. I want to make sure I quote this correctly. In recent weeks, I have spoken to a large number of former and current Yankees, spanning several eras, to elicit their perspectives on a long-standing facial hair and grooming policy. You're telling me I'm a former Yankee living my life. Steinbrenner calls up, and it's not for, hey, we're going to honor you at this night here at the ballpark, or, hey, how's the wife? How's the kids? No, it's, hey, man, so you think I should keep wearing these guys' razors or not? Do you think we should? How stupid of a phone call is that?
Right?
That's the biggest waste of time in anyone's life, that Steinbrenner calls them up to ask is, hey, is this outdated thing really outdated? How many people wasted their lives giving him advice on the dumbest possible policy he could enact?
Ray's getting angry today. We got him all worked up about the Sixers. We're all worked up about I'm just curious, would your beard qualify as a well-groomed beard? I think it would.
Now it is. Yesterday it wouldn't. Today it does.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to enact that. Like, are they going to check every day?
It's a Seinfeld. It literally is. It's literally, and you don't watch, so I can't do it. So I went out there that was watch Seinfeld. This is a Costanza job. Costanza would be put in charge of this, and he'd have to be the one that tells people you're not well-groomed enough. It's literally, this is so stupid, it's comical.
It creates a job for someone. Isn't that good?
No, it doesn't.
Ray wants the job.
Steinbrenner's not spending on Soto. You think he's paying for a well-groomer guy? Come on, give me a break.
I didn't think bringing it up would get Ray so angry.
Because it's been done for years. It's been so stupid for years. They made, what was it? I think Kutch had to cut his dreads because he went to New York. They made him shape up
Garrett Cole's beard.
Remember when Johnny Damon went from Boston to New York?
Right.
That was a crazy
And
one.
Damon was fun in Boston. And it becomes, the Yankees are so pristine. Yeah, guess what? It's the 21st century, man. I understand they got 09 over us at, like, the beginning of the century. But, like, when was the last time it was really that prestigious to be a Yankee? Congrats. You were in the World Series this year. You got smoked.
Well, there's going to be plenty of time for baseball talk coming up because I think the Phillies have their first spring training game tomorrow, right? This weekend.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow?
Tigers tomorrow. Yeah. Great for league action, man. I'm going to try and find the Tigers broadcasting because I don't think the Phillies are.
The Phillies are not. I don't know about the Tigers.
All right, I want to find video of
one
this.
Thing I wanted to get into with Mike. One thing I wanted to get into with Mike, and maybe we'll do it next week, is that they're going to have robot umpires in the Grapefruit League. So you're going to see it if you watch any of the spring training with the Phillies. They're going to have this process that they're testing out where each team's going to get 2 challenges. Have you seen this?
Yes.
So each team gets 2 challenges. And the way it works is it has to be immediate. Either the pitcher, the batter, or the catcher has to immediately call for the challenge if they disagree with the strike or ball call. They can't look to the dugout. It can't come from the coach. If you get it correct, you keep your challenge. But you're only going to get 2 if you get them both wrong. So I think this is perfect, man. It wouldn't be implemented in the Major League Baseball this coming season. They're testing it out in the Grapefruit League. But maybe next year we can finally get away from these ridiculous calls, man. But we'll do that next week.
Yeah, I'm cool with them getting calls right.
I want to see what Mike's opinion is because, he's a traditionalist when it comes to baseball.
Listen,
I guess if Rob Thompson's okay with it, maybe Mike will be okay with it. But
that's behind his back, man. That's not cool.
Oh, I'd say it to him.
That's not cool. When I take shots to you at weekends, I instruct every single producer that I have to cut the audio and email it to you. It's been going to Salciunas now for weeks, but I've been trying to get the emails to you.
Wait, I sang Hold Me Closer, Robbie Thompson to Mike yesterday, so I'm pretty sure this isn't behind his back. All right, well, let's go back to the football for a second because as we're talking about New York, and I want to get back to the Eagles free agents, but I read a story that was interesting talking about New York and my favorite general manager, Joe Shane.
I want next time we do a show together, no Sirianni and no Shane.
So an article written by The Athletic. Would the Rams really trade Matthew Stafford to the Giants? And then they go through and they examine a whole potential deal that could get Matthew Stafford to the Giants. I want to make this relevant to the Eagles for a second. Would you have any concerns in the NFC East if Matthew Stafford is now the quarterback of the New York Giants? Would that make you nervous at all, Ray?
It's a dumbass question.
No.
Me either. Because I looked at it first, I'm thinking, well, but they are not just a quarterback away. I mean, you saw it last season. They're
36-year-old, 37-year-old. How old is that man now?
Matthew Stafford's
47. Like, with all due respect, he was very close. They drove down the field.
37. He just turned 37 2 weeks ago. But there's some issues now going on with him in New York, or excuse me, in LA. So could he come cross country? But yeah, that doesn't make me nervous. And as I say that, outside of the Commanders, do the Cowboys or the Giants make you nervous? I mean, even if they make some moves this offseason.
I would say no.
And with the Commanders, as good as they were, Ray, they had signed a lot of players to one-year deals. So they're going to have some issues as well. Now, they got a ton of cap space.
Yeah, they're going to have a lot of cap space. I'll be honest with you. My lusting for Myles Garrett, I think he ends up in the NFC East one of two ways.
With Washington. Well, right now they're the favorites. The betting favorite that I saw was the Washington Commanders. Well, look at this, Ray. They got $82 million in cap space. The Eagles have 19.
Hold the phones. We've got some news. Brandon Staley, defensive coordinator for Kellen Moore. Christian Parker, still here.
Yep, we said that a little early in the show. It looked like Brandon Staley was the favorite. So that is great news. So for those out there who don't understand why Ray is saying it's breaking news, Kellen Moore went to New Orleans, and he was interviewing Christian Parker, who did a great job with the back end of the Eagles' defense this year. He was interviewing Christian Parker to potentially be his defensive coordinator. But now he goes with Brandon Staley, who was a terrible head coach with the Chargers, but a very good defensive coordinator. So thank you, Kellen Moore, for not taking another coach away from the Philadelphia Eagles. But coming up next, I want to get back to more of this Philadelphia Eagles discussion. There's a ton of texts. I still got people coming at me with my Darius Slay take that the Eagles should move on from him, which I stand by. But if they do, if they make the financial decision, people, this is not a personal attack on Slay or even him as a player, the financial decision to save cap space and move on from Slay, what would that mean for the Eagles secondary? We'll get into it coming up next.
Fanatic Sports Update.
Cam Jurgens has back surgery. I'm Sean Rodman, and this is your Fanatic Sports Update. Jurgens fought through a back injury in the NFC Championship game and Super Bowl, and reportedly underwent surgery Tuesday to alleviate some nerve pain. Jurgens is expected to make a full recovery by July in time for the start of training camp. A.J. Brown did some media rounds yesterday, and he highlighted his love for Kevin Patullo's promotion as the Eagles' new offensive coordinator.
I truly feel like it's a great hire. He already has been involved in almost everything. Him, Kellen, and Nick basically called the plays already. So it's a great hire.
The Sixers lost by 20 to the Celtics last night, with the Sixers' big three all playing last night. Paul George confirmed post-game he has been receiving treatment on his left pinky finger. It was reported last week that he was receiving injections in his finger in order to play. This update is sponsored by Robert Half. 9 out of 10 hiring managers are having difficulty hiring today. Robert Half is here to help. At Robert Half, they know talent. Visit roberthalf.com today. I'm Sean Rodman on the home of the 76ers and Flyers, 97.5 The Fanatic and 97.5thefanatic.com.
Hit it, Ray. Back streets back. All right. Oh, yeah, baby. Boy Band Friday. You know what? Maybe we should make that a thing. Let me talk to Mike. Maybe every return song on Friday should be all boy bands. We'll go in sync. Backstreet. We'll bring in a little O-Town. Some 98 Degrees. What else we got?
You would ruin his weekend.
Oh, he would hate it. He would hate it, but I would love it. All right, what else I would love, even though people think I'm a Darius Slay hater, is I would love to see
You're sour.
Howie.
He blocked you. Just admit it.
I would love to see Howie Roseman make some cap room by moving on from Darius Slay. Nothing personal.
Seems very personal.
He's going to be, how old did we say Slay was right now?
48.
He's basically
83.
Hey, in cornerback years, he's 34. So
Which in quarterback years is 65.
In quarterback
That's
years,
actually AARP. You now can retire.
You're not kidding. And we talked about the old cliche. You move on from a player a year too soon rather than a year too late. So if you move on from Darius Slay and you save that cap space and you move on from James Bradbury, which nobody's arguing about, it allows you to hopefully get Zack Bond back and get either Milton Williams or Josh Sweat back. I want Milton Williams. Ray wants Josh Sweat. But either way, if moving on from Darius Slay allows that to happen, then I think you have to make the tough decision of moving on from Darius Slay. But if you do that, what are you doing in the secondary? Now, you may also lose Isaiah Rodgers. So how much faith do you have in a guy like Keely Ringo on the outside? Do you keep Cooper DeJean in the slot? That's what I would do. If I move on from Slay, obviously have Quinyon as your shutdown corner on the one side. I'd make an effort to sign Isaiah Rodgers to have him and Keely Ringo battle for the other outside cornerback position, and I'm keeping Cooper DeJean at the nickel. But I know we got a text on this, Sean. What are the texters saying?
Yeah, so Tom from the Northeast is pretty much agreeing with you there. He says defensive line is more of a concern than the secondary. Cut Bradbury, cut Slay, re-sign Rodgers, make him number 2, and you can keep Cooper at the nickel. Defensive line is the priority that we need to really build on this offseason if we want to keep this defense as good as it was this past year.
Hard to argue with that, Raymond. Now,
you're not wrong.
What do you hear? You're not wrong. I have a guy, I think I told you, under every single social media video, he just puts YNW. You're not wrong. Look, in 6 months that we've been a show, Mike said that yesterday, we've been a show for 6 months. We've developed a lot of sayings and songs. And if you missed it earlier, I'm going to remind you again. Head over to my Twitter right now because I have pinned to the top of my Twitter an unbelievable rendition of Sirianni Love that a fan put together for us. Remixed it, auto-tuned it. It's a lot more pleasurable to listen to than my normal voice. It's excellent. At Bill Colarulo, go check it out. Leave me a comment underneath because it is fire.
You mentioned things that we've built into our brand in these 6 months. I was out to lunch yesterday, and this will be a 30-second aside, and then back to the birds we go. Got a wonderful lunch with my grandmother. Great time. Dinner rolls were served with the table.
Oh!
There were 4 of them for the 2 of us. I had 2 of them. She did not partake in the dinner roll. She had a nice appetizer, nice meal. Wasn't feeling dinner rolls. There were 2 left there at the end. I was thinking of both you and Mike the whole time.
I would have taken them.
I also wanted to take them. But I also realized that I was going back to our apartment where I likely would have had more stuff to take home. I did. Thank you for the donuts. I appreciate it. And I decided not to. But it was in my mind that had I been in a different setup, I would have taken them. And it would have been the only thing I took from that meal because we didn't take anything else home.
Now, that I wouldn't have done, I don't think.
I
wouldn't have taken the bread.
Shout out Chad Wicks out there in, is it Audubon, technically?
Where were you?
Audubon, PA.
Oh, PA.
Audubon, PA.
I'm thinking Audubon,
Sorry,
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
But yeah, so what Ray's talking about is early on in the show, one of the early disagreements that me and Mike had was Mike feels that if you go to a restaurant and there's bread left over on the table, that you can't take it. And I said that if you're bringing home leftover food, you should be able to take the bread. So Ray didn't do it. But Ray, you reminded me, before we get back to the Eagles talk, you said you were out to lunch with your grandmother.
Yeah.
Grandma Melly, who has called the show in the past, is turning 90 years old on Sunday.
That's awesome.
We're having a big celebration for her, the whole family, so it should be great. But if Ellie's listening, which I believe she does every single day, happy early birthday, 90 years old. And just like I was right about Nick Sirianni, so was she. We played that audio on the show before. She wanted Sirianni back, and she was correct. Maybe we'll get Ellie involved in the next Sirianni Love.
Happy birthday, Grandma Ellie. I do have to say you did let him work in Sirianni to a show he said he wasn't going to.
That's
but
true.
I respect you to the point where I will let that go. Happy birthday, Grandma.
But
Hope
listen,
Sunday is fantastic.
Thank you, Ray. And you and I have been pretty much in agreement on most things today. The only thing we disagreed on was who we would prioritize on defense. We agreed Zack Bond number 1, but then we were debating Sweat or Williams. I want Williams, you want Sweat, but we have a bunch of texts on this, Sean. Where are people leaning between prioritizing Josh Sweat or Milton Williams?
Yeah, actually, this person checking in says you have to let Sweat and Milton walk. They have both Savages, but remember Hargrave commanded big money, and they were able to reload through the draft, and that looks like Jalix Hunt.
Different position with Milton Williams. Now, you're correct on Josh Sweat. That's why I'd be okay in letting Sweat walk, is I think Jalix Hunt, what I saw from Jalix Hunt in what was supposed to be a redshirt year, Ray, like when they drafted him, now he was on Andrew DeCecco's draft board. He was aware of him because DeCecco is just a lunatic when it comes to knowing these college prospects. He's incredible. He knew Jalix Hunt.
Andrew DeCecco.
Yeah, he knew Jalix Hunt. But when they drafted Hunt, a lot of people thought this was a redshirt year for him. Not only was it not a redshirt year, he ends up playing more than your big free agent acquisition, Bryce Huff, and then makes a sack of Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I can't wait to see what this guy does in his second season. You saw Nolan Smith grow, but you are going to need some depth there. But when you look at the D tackle position, Milton Williams is essentially a starter. Right? I mean, he's essentially a starter. Not that Josh Sweat wasn't, but you have two guys that could elevate to become starters. If you let Williams walk, what are you doing? Like we're saying the draft, there's no guarantee you find the guy that can step in as a rookie and perform at the D tackle position.
Next to Jalen Carter?
A lot of people on YouTube are saying the same thing. Like, you got Jalen Carter there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're a first, second-round talent in a rotational spot with Ojomo, and I imagine still there'll be a lot of run packages that are heavily, focused on having Jordan Davis out there on the field. It's not like I'm asking you for 100% all the time. You're going to be a rotational guy, first, second-round talent alongside Jalen Carter. I don't think the bar is so incredibly high. Let me put it to you this way. I have no vertical leap. I can't jump very high. I think the bar to get over for a guy that they could sign or draft to be productive alongside Jalen Carter, I just narrowly miss. It's decently high. I can't jump that high, but I just narrowly miss it in terms of just how high I'd raise that bar. It's not a crazy bar to clear. I think if I was doing the high jump, I would just narrowly miss it because I can't jump high. But I think most people would be able to clear that bar.
You see, this is the only thing I disagree with people's just saying playing next to Carter is, yes, Jalen Carter is going to take on the double teams, and you're going to get your one-on-one. But you still got to be able to win. You still have to be able to win your one-on-ones, and Milton Williams showed this season that he can win those one-on-ones. He had some of the best numbers in the NFL. I mean, I'm just reading some of these things. He had a career high in sacks with 5. Career high in quarterback pressures with 40. He ranked 4th in the NFL among interior defensive linemen in pass rush win rate at 17.5% per Pro Football Focus. I know all of this is going to result in a big payday, but I don't look at this as Javon Hargrave. Milton Williams is 25. Like, he still may not have hit his prime. And I think about how scary that defensive line can be. Milton Williams, Jalen Carter, Jalix Hunt, Nolan Smith. And now I'm going to go back to how we started the show. And we'll talk about it on the other side. The potential of Myles Garrett. Because that's how we started the show. That's how we'll finish the show. There's a lot of texts on Myles Garrett. I want to revisit the idea of adding him. And then who would we be willing to give up? In addition to the draft capital, Ray, you probably wouldn't be able to sign all these free agents we're saying we want to sign. So let's take a look at that defensive line, and we got to talk about, is Jordan Davis going to get his fifth-year option exercised? But if you bring in Myles Garrett, does that change our entire outlook on how the Eagles approach free agency? We'll talk about that coming up next.
Andrew Salciunas.
coming down the home stretch on this beautiful Friday. Freezing cold. But it's still a beautiful day. Because you know why, Ray? You know why it's still a beautiful day?
Because you get to see me?
Well, that, but even more importantly, because we're still Super Bowl champs.
That's true.
I can't believe it, though, really. I mean, still sometimes I keep seeing, because I got some Super Bowl gear now, and the highlights are running everywhere.
Congratulations on your success.
Yeah. Oh, how about Big Dom being the highlight of the 76ers Celtics game last night? He was in attendance with the Lombardi Trophy.
This is no disrespect to Big Dom.
You better not be disrespecting
Any
Big Dom.
sideshow at a Sixers game right now is the highlight of a Sixers game.
You better not be disrespected.
But yeah, it's good to
Big
see him
Dom.
out there with the hardware, having a good time. Shout out Big Dom.
Yeah, but no, that was
I'm a
pretty
fan
cool.
of Big Dom. Please don't put that out there.
Yeah, let's clip that.
I'm not one of those people that's like, why is this guy getting attention? I think it's fun. I think it's cool. The guy does a lot, clearly.
Well, there was A.J. Brown, and we're going to play an audio clip of his in a second because I want to get back to the Myles Garrett conversation. But A.J. Brown on that same podcast talked about Big Dom. He talked about how Big Dom is the reason that team stays together. And this was one of the arguments I had with Mike before on the air is like, we talk about the culture of the Philadelphia Eagles. I give a lot of credit to Sirianni. You can't talk about the culture of the Eagles without giving credit to Dom DeSandro.
That's the third Sirianni on the no Sirianni.
Oh, come on, man. I haven't done too bad of Nick Sirianni.
I mean, it's an under certainly for what people would bet for our show. But yeah, obviously. I mean, you got to give him credit. I also think like his elevation of profile has allowed that to come about. I think people are like, well, nobody else talks about these people in other teams. I think it's because there's no profile for that specific person in that organization, or they don't do as good a job. So I think people that are like, wow, he's overexposed. He's overexposed because, one, he's doing a good job at his job, and two, because he got the exposure, now people can talk about him because people know who we're talking about.
Well, yeah, and people have been talking about Dom in recent years, but he's been a part of the organization for like 26 years now. Just fun. Like, he's hit the mainstream, so to speak,
right.
Like recently. He's been with the Eagles for like 26 years.
But everything becomes a bigger story because now people know who he is.
True.
And also because last year.
But, all right, before we get back to the Myles Garrett conversation, I know you want to give some praise to somebody.
Yeah, real quick. We were talking about Sixers there. We were talking about basketball there. To take it to college basketball real quick, and I understand people, we'll get back to the Birds in a few seconds. I just want to shout out Fran Dunphy on an incredible career. They announced officially that this is going to be his last season. I will be there at John Glazer Arena March 8th for the final game of his regular season coaching career with St. Joe's and LaSalle. 3 different institutions, over 600 wins, did it the right way for the longest time. A wonderful human being who's done so much off the court while being on the court. Obviously was at Temple for that 13-year, I believe, stretch following the time at Penn, at LaSalle, Mr. Big Five, all those wonderful things. Just a tremendous guy. I got a chance to be around his program the last year that he was at Temple, which was my first year there. I ended up having him as a professor at Temple, which was a really cool dynamic. I got to tell him to his face that he made a young Ray Dunn cry because I was rooting for St. Joe's in the A-10 title game where they beat St. Joe's. So it's cool to see him go, get a chance to put a wrap on what was an incredible career. I know he sometimes will check in, listen in, enjoys the show, and also, always just a great guy to catch up with when I see him at a game. So, Fran Dunphy, wonderful career. Congratulations to you. I want to make sure we got that in today because it would be wrong to have a Philadelphia sports talk show today and not mention a Philadelphia legend calling it a career. So, shout out to Fran.
Spot on, Ray Dunn. Spot on. I mean, you look at his record, his career record as a college coach, 623 and 376. And not taking anything away from the colleges that he coached at, but not basketball powerhouses. For him to have that type of record, I mean, look, Temple at times is not.
Temple, he had the job of being the next guy after John Chaney, which was always going to be tough shoes to walk in. And obviously at Penn, everything he was able to do and at the top of the Ivy League for such a long time. And LaSalle, he's at because he was basically Mike Sealski had a tremendous column today in the Inquirer about it. Like he was called to serve, basically. Like he felt service was the reason that he should go be the head coach of LaSalle when they need a new head coach. Not a lot of college coaches choose where they're going to coach because they feel like they should serve that institution. Usually it's self-serving. Usually it's, promotion. It's so I need to go up further. So all the respect in the world to the guy and a great career. And I look forward to seeing him soon.
Well said, Ray Dunn. Well said. So let's finish up the show like we started it, talking about this Myles Garrett thing, because I said it earlier when it first came out that he was requesting a trade, and I saw Eagles fans saying, oh, you got to get him, you got to get him. I'm thinking, here we go, pipe dreaming again just because it's a big name. But now they're starting to get some traction here where the Eagles, according to Vegas, second best odds to trade for Myles Garrett. The Eagles, according to an NFL insider for ESPN, Bill Barnwell, his bold prediction, the Eagles get Myles Garrett. We heard Dan Graziano, another ESPN NFL insider, say this is the exact move the Philadelphia Eagles would make. And then we had A.J. Brown on a podcast yesterday saying this.
You never answer me, though. Any free agents you want. You feel me? Money don't matter. You could bring anybody on your team.
Unlimited salary cap is off.
Honestly, that's what it be feeling like over here. I'll say Myles Garrett.
Oh, my God.
Adding him with Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith.
Man. Well, first of all, before we get to the Garrett thing, I love what AJ says. They said, no salary cap. He goes, well, that's what it feels like over here. Basically saying, like, we got Howie Roseman, man. It doesn't matter about the salary cap when you have Howie Roseman. But there's now, like, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And it starts to feel like maybe this is a real possibility. I'm not saying it's a probability, but it is a real possibility that they could get Myles Garrett. What would that do to what we've been talking about pretty much all day? So I'm saying, hey, prioritize Milton Williams. You're saying prioritize Josh Sweat. I guess if you bring in a Myles Garrett,
that's cool. I'm good. Josh Sweat,
right?
Wipe the brow. My concern about the edge rushers, you could go get your money elsewhere. You get Myles Garrett, Josh Sweat, you could go find another team that's going to pay you a ton of money.
So you let Milton Williams walk too?
I mean, I try and consider it, but I imagine Myles Garrett, plus if I'm bringing back Bond, that's probably two big salaries right there.
And you still have Jalen Carter in the middle. You'll have Nolan Smith entering his third season, which is if he continues to get better, watch out. Jalix Hunt entering his second season. If he continues to get better, watch out. Oh, man.
And this is...
Now I'm going to be disappointed if it doesn't happen, right?
Don't do that to yourself.
I know.
Because I've accepted this as a dream. And I want to pursue it, but I've not yet let myself believe that it's absolutely going to happen.
Well, remember a few months ago, too, Jeffrey Lurie sold off a chunk of the team, so could be able to give Myles Garrett some signing bonuses to get the extra money to kind of work the numbers a little bit there.
If there's a restructure in there. But
correct.
Here's the one thing I will say to this, and this is, I know a lot of people will say, well, like, you got a young nucleus, why add to that? Why go spend the money here on a guy like Myles Garrett? One, Myles Garrett, fantastic, in his prime, all those things, but they will probably restructure because look at these void years. They're ridiculous in his contract
I'm
at the end of it right now.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If you add a top-tier, top-end, high-priced talent right now while Carter's on a rookie deal, while Davis, rookie deal, Dean, Smith, while Quinion, DeJean, there's a lot of top-end talent that you're not paying the premium price that you're going to in a few years. He fits the timeline of a guy you can pay right now, get the prime of his career, and then focus on re-signing and retaining that young talent down the line.
You got a couple of years.
This is the time to do it.
You got a couple of years before you have to worry about Quinion, Cooper, Jalix Hunt. You got a couple of years before you have to worry about Carter and Nolan Smith. But you are going to have to pay, not that he's going to require a ton of money, but like Nakobe Dean, not a free agent, but eligible for a new deal. Jordan Davis, they got to exercise that fifth-year option, and then I'm sure they're going to want to extend him. At least I would think. Would you give Jordan Davis an extension?
Yeah.
I know he's been kind of a polarizing figure because he hasn't put up the big numbers on the inside there. But
probably just to finish this Myles Garrett point though, like if you go out and get a free agent edge rusher, which a lot of people right now, like, why would you pay the draft capital to do it? If you go get a free agent edge rusher, you're probably not signing them to 2 years that Garrett has on his deal left. You're probably signing him to a 4-year, something like that.
Or 3. I mean, they signed Huff to a 3-year deal, right? Was that what it was? Was Huff 3 or 4?
But like to go get a proven edge rusher, like beyond 1 year proven edge rusher, because Huff has the one big year, gets 3-year deal. Like you're probably going 3 or 4 years. You're already starting to tap into those years that you're going to end up paying these guys. Like his contract kind of perfectly lines up with where your money needs to be right now.
Well, and somebody on the YouTube chat, and I apologize, I'm not giving you the credit for it, but I can't find it, but said this is not, that he disagreed, that this was not an Eagles type of move because, look, they didn't pay Hassan, right here it is. Colby says, I disagree that this is an Eagles move. They didn't want to pay Hassan at the age of 30. They wouldn't want to pay Garrett either. Look, Hassan Reddick was great when he was here. I loved Hassan Reddick when he was here.
Huge fan of the guy.
He's not Myles Garrett. And there are very few players ever in the history of the National Football League that are Myles Garrett level players. So this would, just like the Eagles kind of went outside the norm when they paid Saquon Barkley because they knew they were getting a game changer on the offensive side of the ball, and look how that worked out for him. The same thing can be said about a player like Myles Garrett. You get Myles Garrett, that's a game changer on the defensive side of the football, and you put him on a defensive line that has Jalen Carter. As excited as I am about Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt in the future, it really don't even matter. I feel like I could probably line up at edge rusher when Jalen Carter and Myles Garrett on the defensive line, and I'm going to be able to get pressure on a damn quarterback. What do you think, Ray? Think I could pull it off? I mean, we already know I could hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
I would say no.
By the way, Ricky,
Dumbass question.
Ricky Bowe and I spoke. He's trying to make that happen, by the way. I know we got a lot of texts, and I want to get to a bunch of them before we're out of here. What do we got on this Myles Garrett thing, Sean?
All right, first up, Steve from Haverton says, I would give up my firstborn son for Myles Garrett.
Oh.
Then we have Terrence from Wilmington. Adding Myles Garrett is like when the 90s Cowboys added Charles Haley, who played for the 49ers before, and the Cowboys already had a top 5 defense.
Yeah, it would be remarkable. But I don't like comparing anything to the Cowboys. But, yeah, what else you got?
And another one, we have Jamal from West Philly, and I apologize to Ray in advance because this is a Nick Sirianni thing. He says, I'll trade Nick Sirianni for Myles Garrett.
Oh, man. What a hypothetical.
They knew they were going to get at me on that one. He knew he was going to get at me at that one. The only person that would be off limits for me, well, I did say I wouldn't trade Jalix Hunt as part of the deal, but you're not trading Nick Sirianni. Come on now.
The only person?
Everybody else is on board except for Nick Sirianni.
Quarterbacks on the board?
Ray. No, I'm just kidding. I'm being facetious. And so is the texter. Look, I'm trying not to make this a Sirianni love show, okay? We're past that. See, look, I've told you all before. Let me explain. The over-the-top hatred towards the head coach is what forced me to go over the top with the Sirianni love bit, all right? My love, as I've said before, is not unconditional. When Sirianni made mistakes this year, specifically the New Orleans Saints game, I hated the decisions. The Jaguars game, I hated the decisions. What he did after the Cleveland Browns game, I hated it. I was very open to ridicule him for those things. But my over-the-top love was in response to the over-the-top hate, which is now gone. There isn't an over-the-top hatred. People have come around on the head coach. People have said, you know what? We should have been listening to that Bill Colarulo all along. He was right about the Phillies when Mikey Miss was wrong. He was right about Nick Sirianni when Mikey Miss was wrong. I'm going to start listening to Bill Colarulo because he tends to be right a lot, Ray. A lot. Come on, Ray. Admit it. Admit it. In the 6 months we've done this show, I've been right a lot more times than I've been wrong.
I don't know, man. Is this passing offense good enough to win a Super Bowl?
Yo, I threw out the question. I never said it wasn't. That was a topic. And I went to stats and said, hey, I did question the quarterback at the very end, right after that Carolina Panthers game. I'm like, oh, man, I don't know about Jalen Hurts. And then he has the Pittsburgh game, and I said, I'll never question him again.
Howie Roseman has done a disservice to this team with his defensive drafting history, hasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. In the moment when I said that.
All right, we got to get out of here.
Absolutely.
You've done well. Good job, Bill.
In the moment I said that, absolutely. But Howie Roseman has turned it around. But listen, I want to thank everybody who engaged with us on the YouTube chat, on the text board, all week long. This is kind of that Super Bowl hangover week, but it turned out to be a really fun week. We'll have the full crew back on Monday. Mikey Miss will be back. You'll have me. You'll have Ray. We appreciate everybody. Have a great weekend. Keep it here. Ricky Bowe, Amy Fadul, Savannah Kelleher coming up next.